Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakened the blood of Arceus and Kaguya and became the supreme creation god. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Convergence Point. The blood in Naruto's veins burned like liquid starlight. He staggered against an ancient oak, fingers digging into rough bark as another wave of impossible sensations crashed through his consciousness. 17 hours had passed since he'd departed the training grounds, 17 hours of increasingly disturbing episodes where reality itself seemed to fracture around him. "What's happening to me?" he whispered, voice raw from hours of solitary travel. No answer came from the dense forest surrounding him, just the distant call of birds and the whisper of leaves dancing in the afternoon breeze. The peaceful scenery contrasted sharply with the chaos inside him. For a brief moment, Naruto could perceive the intricate flow of sap through the tree, the complex exchange of nutrients in its roots. The subtle electromagnetic field generated by its living cells, details no human eyes should discern. He pushed himself forward, determined to reach Konoha before nightfall. 3 weeks of intensive solo training in the remote mountains had yielded unexpected results, but not the kind he'd anticipated. He'd mastered the new wind-style techniques Kakashi had assigned him, yes, but so nothing else had awakened during his isolation, something that felt ancient and terrifyingly vast. The first episode had struck during meditation beneath a waterfall. For exactly 43 seconds, Naruto had perceived the water not as a singular element but as billions of individual molecules, each one carrying memories of clouds, oceans, and underground rivers. The experience had left him trembling and disoriented, convinced he was losing his mind. The familiar gates of Konoha appeared through the trees, their solid presence reassuring after weeks in wilderness. Naruto straightened his posture, forced a neutral expression onto his face, and approached the entrance with carefully measured steps. The last thing he needed was for anyone to notice something amiss. "Well, look who finally decided to grace us with his presence," called Izumo from his position at the guard station, a playful smile softening his words. Kotetsu glanced up from his logbook, eyebrows rising slightly. "You look like you wrestled a bear, Naruto. Training went well, I take it." "Better than expected," Naruto replied with a deliberately casual shrug, ignoring the way colors seemed to blur and separate around the guard's forms. "Just need about 16 bowls of ramen and 3 days of sleep." The guards laughed, waving him through with familiar ease that twisted painfully in Naruto's chest. How quick Why would that easy camaraderie vanish if they knew what was happening to him? If they could see the impossible visions flickering through his mind. Konoha's streets bustled with late afternoon activity, merchants closing shops, children racing home for dinner, shinobi reporting for evening patrol shifts. Naruto navigated through the crowds automatically, his body remembering the path while his mind drifted into increasingly fractured awareness. Every person he passed seemed to emit a distinct energy signature, some flickering with colors that corresponded to emotional states he somehow instinctively understood. He turned down a narrow alley, desperate for a moment alone before facing anyone who knew him well enough to spot the differences. Leaning against the cool stone wall, Naruto closed his eyes and focused on his breathing, trying to center himself as Jiraiya had taught him. "You're seeing them too, aren't you?" The soft voice startled him so badly he nearly struck out on instinct. His eyes snapped open to find a figure standing at the alley's entrance, silhouetted against the golden afternoon light. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. The confident posture and direct gaze seemed completely at odds with his memories. "Hinata?" he questioned, squinting against the glare. She stepped forward, and Naruto's breath caught in his throat. This was Hinata, yet somehow fundamentally transformed. Her traditional training attire had been replaced by an ensemble of midnight blue and silver that seemed to capture and reflect light in impossible ways. Her dark hair was longer, now containing subtle indigo highlights that shifted like the night sky. But most striking were her eyes, still the characteristic pale lavender of the Hyuga clan, but now containing pinpoints of light that resembled distant stars. "Not exactly," she replied, her voice carrying a melodic quality he'd never heard before. "My birth name is Tsukihime, though I've answered to Hinata since being placed with the Hyuga clan as an infant." The distinction didn't matter until now. Naruto stared, momentarily forgetting his own strange condition. I don't understand. The celestial convergence has begun, she said, stepping closer with purpose. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, stand at its center. That's why you're experiencing the perception shifts, your blood is awakening. A chill raced down his spine. My blood. We should not speak of this here. Tsukihime glanced meaningfully at the busy street beyond the alley. There are eyes and ears everywhere, and what I must tell you would attract dangerous attention. I was just heading home, Naruto offered, struggling to reconcile this self-assured woman with the shy girl he remembered. She shook her head firmly. Your apartment isn't secure enough. Follow me, there's a place prepared for this conversation. Against his better judgment, Naruto found himself following her through increasingly unfamiliar sections of Konoha. They wound through narrow passages between buildings, crossed rooftops in precise patterns that seemed designed to evade surveillance, and finally arrived at what appeared to be an abandoned storage facility near the village's eastern wall. Tsukihime pressed her palm against the weathered door, channeling chakra in a complex pattern Naruto had never encountered. The door shimmered briefly before swinging inward, to reveal not the dusty warehouse he expected, but a space that defied architectural logic, a circular chamber with walls covered in shifting symbols and constellations that moved with purpose across curved surfaces. What is this place? Naruto whispered, taking in the impossible room that seemed larger inside than the building's exterior should allow. An observatory, Tsukihime answered, sealing the entrance behind them. One of 7 maintained by my clan for over 3,000 years. Your clan? I thought you were a Hyuga. I was raised among them, but I am the last of the Tsukigame. I clan. Celestial observers tasked with watching for signs of the convergence. She moved to the center of the room where a raised platform contained what appeared to be a 3-dimensional star map hovering in midair. We've been waiting for generations, preserving knowledge, maintaining the observatories, and watching the skies for the return. Naruto approached cautiously, noticing how certain points of light in the stellar projection pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. The return of what? Tsukihime's eyes met his, their starlit depths reflecting knowledge far beyond her years. Not what? Naruto. Who? The original one and the rabbit goddess, Arceus and Kaguya, whose divine bloodlines have converged in you. The room seemed to tilt around him. That's impossible. I'm just Naruto Uzumaki. I've got the 9 tails sealed in me. Yeah, but I'm not. You've never questioned why you could master techniques that should take years to perfect in mere days. Tsukihime interrupted. Why your chakra reserves exceed even those of most Kage. Why you can create thousands of shadow clones when most Jonin struggle to maintain a dozen. The 9 tails was sealed within you precisely because your unique genetic makeup could withstand its power. But my parents were Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze, Naruto protested, clinging to the precious knowledge of his lineage that he'd only recently discovered. Yes, they were, Tsukihime acknowledged gently, but bloodlines can remain dormant for generations before the right combination of factors triggers their expression. Something has activated what has always been within you, perhaps your intensive training in isolation, perhaps your age reaching the critical threshold, perhaps cosmic forces beyond our comprehension. Before Naruto could formulate a response, a shrill alarm sounded from one of the devices along the wall. Tsukihime rushed to examine it, her expression tightening with concern. It's happening faster than I anticipated, she murmured, fingers dancing over controls. The star map in the center of the room shifted, zooming in on what appeared to be a representation of Konoha and its surroundings. A pulsing crimson tear had appeared in the space above the Hokage monument. What is that? Naruto asked, approaching the projection. A dimensional breach, Tsukihime explained tersely. The first physical manifestation of the convergence. The barriers between worlds are weakening, allowing entities from other dimensions to cross over. As if responding to her words, a violent tremor shook the observatory. Dust rained from the ceiling as instruments along the walls registered spikes in unidentifiable energy readings. We need to go, Tsukihime said, already moving toward the exit. Whatever is coming through that breach, it's drawn to you. Your awakening blood is like a beacon across dimensions. They burst from the building into chaos. Civilians ran through the streets in panic as Anbu shinobi directed evacuation procedures. Above the Hokage monument, Visible to everyone now, hung a rift in reality, a jagged tear in the fabric of the sky that pulsed with otherworldly light. Objects were emerging from the rift. Things that defied description. Part animal, part mineral, part energy construct, descending toward the village with predatory intent. Naruto. Sakura's voice cut through the commotion as she landed beside them. Medical kit bouncing against her hip. What is happening? Lady Tsunade has ordered full evacuation to the shelters. These things, she gestured to the descending entities. They're not responding to any jutsu we throw at them. They wouldn't, Tsukihime interjected. They exist partially outside our physical laws. Sakura blinked, clearly noticing the changes in Hinata for the first time. What happened to you? And what do you mean, outside physical laws? There's no time to explain, Naruto cut in, watching as the strange entities began attacking buildings seemingly at random. We need to help evacuate civilians. A child's scream pierced the air. Without hesitation, Naruto launched himself toward the sound, Sakura and Tsukihime following close behind. EY rounded a corner to find a group of academy students trapped against a wall, 3 of the dimensional entities advancing on them. Up close, the creatures were even more disturbing, vaguely humanoid. Forms composed of shifting geometric patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly, trailing wisps of foreign energy that corroded whatever they touched. Get back, Naruto shouted, hands already forming familiar seals. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of clones materialized, surrounding the children and engaging the entities. To Naruto's shock, his clones passed straight through the creature's as if they weren't fully present in this reality. Physical attacks won't work, Tsukihime called out, her hands forming unfamiliar seals. They exist between dimensions. Then what will work? Sakura demanded, positioning herself protectively before the children. An entity lunged toward them, its limbs elongating impossibly. Acting on instinct rather than thought, Naruto thrust his hand forward, channeling chakra in a way he never had before. Something within him resonated with the dimensional nature of the creatures. He could feel the frequencies they existed on, could sense the vibration of their otherworldly composition. Golden energy erupted from his palm, not chakra as he knew it but something more fundamental, pure creation force. The entity recoiled as if struck, its form destabilizing upon contact with Naruto's power. How did you do that? Sakura gasped. I don't know, Naruto admitted, staring at his hand where golden energy still danced across his skin. The sensatio was both foreign and intimately familiar, as if he'd always possessed this ability but had somehow forgotten until now. More entities descended from the rift, dozens of them now, targeting buildings and civilians with increasing aggression. Anbu and Jonin fought desperately to repel them, but conventional jutsu seemed largely ineffective. They're drawn to you, Tsukihime repeated, her voice steady despite the chaos. Your awakening power is what attracted them here. Guilt lanced through Naruto. Then I need to lead them away from the village. No, Tsukihime grabbed his arm. That's exactly what they want, to isolate you. Together we stand a better chance. But I'm putting everyone in danger just by being here. Naruto protested as another building collapsed nearby. A new voice cut through their argument, calm, authoritative, and distinctly foreign in accent. Actually, you're the only thing preventing total dimensional collapse. They turned to find a woman standing atop a nearby roof, observing the chaos with analytical precision. Her attire marked her as a diplomatic envoy from the land of wind, but the strange devices attached to her wrists and the unnatural grace which she moved suggested something beyond ordinary ambassadorial duties. She leapt down to join them, dark eyes assessing Naruto with unsettling intensity. Interesting. The convergence manifested earlier than our models predicted. You know about this? Naruto demanded. Mitsuko Kazuhana. She introduced herself with a slight bow. Officially, I'm here representing Wind Country's diplomatic interests. Unofficially, I monitor dimensional stability across multiple realities. Another tremor shook the ground as the rift above expanded, its edges crawling further across the previously blue sky. Explanations later, Mitsuko said sharply, withdrawing a device from within her robes. Right now, we need to contain this breach before it destabilizes further. Naruto, I need you to channel that golden energy again. But this time through this amplifier. She handed him what appeared to be a crystalline prism etched with microscopic seals. Naruto took it hesitantly, feeling it resonate with something deep within him. Focus on the concept of boundaries, Mitsuko instructed. Visualize a membrane between here and there, solid yet permeable to what belongs. I don't understand what you're asking, Naruto admitted. Increasingly frustrated. You don't need to understand intellectually, Tsukihime said gently, placing her hand over his. Your blood remembers. Trust that knowledge. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused inward, past the clamor of battle surrounding them, past his own confusion and fear. Something ancient stirred in response, a knowledge that felt like memory yet couldn't possibly be his own. Images flashed through his mind. A white, equine being with a golden ring encircling its body, creating stars with mere thought, a horned woman with pale eyes consuming fruit from a divine tree. Transcending humanity, the prism in his hand grew warm, then hot, resonating with his awakening blood. Golden energy flowed from his core, through his arm, into the device, WH. It split the power into prismatic rays that shot toward the dimensional rift. The beams connected with the jagged edges of the tear, momentarily stabilizing them. It's working, Mitsuko called out, monitoring readings on her wrist device. Keep going. Naruto poured more power into the prism, drawing on reserves he never knew he possessed. The golden energy intensified, spreading from the pre-M to encircle his entire body in an aura of divine light. Around him, the invading entities recoiled, their forms destabilizing in proximity to his power. Something's wrong, Tsukihime suddenly warned, her star-filled eyes widening in alarm. The rift isn't closing, it's changing configuration. The tear in reality pulsed, its edges crystallizing into a structured portal rather than collapsing as they'd hoped. A pressure wave emanated from it, knocking several anbu from rooftops and shattering windows throughout the village. Through the stabilized portal emerged a single figure, humanoid but clearly not human. Its body composed of shifting darkness threaded with cosmic light, face obscured by a mask of bone-white material that resembled both a stylized sun and crescent moon. The Convergence Child, the being spoke, its voice resonating on multiple frequencies simultaneously. At last, who are you? Naruto demanded, stepping forward despite Tsukihime's restraining hand. I am Mukuro, first architect of the Dimensional Conclave, the being announced. We have waited millennia for the bloodlines to converge again, for Arceus and Kaguya to find expression in a single vessel. The entities that had been attacking the village suddenly coordinated their movements, forming a perimeter around Naruto, Tsukihime, Mitsuko, and Sakura, separating them from other Konoha shinobi. The waiting ends, Mukuro continued, descending slowly from the portal. You will come with us, Convergence Child. Your power is needed to repair the damage your progenitors caused when they sundered the original universe. I'm not going anywhere, Naruto replied, shifting into a defensive stance. And I'm not your Convergence Child. I'm Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf Village. Your identity is irrelevant, Mukuro stated flatly. Only your genetic potential matters. The original one and the Rabbit Goddess created this flawed multiverse through their conflict. Their recombined power is required to mend it. Mitsuko stepped forward, her diplomatic demeanor replaced with cold fury. The Dimensional Conclave was banished for attempting to collapse all realities into a single homogeneous dimension. You don't seek repair, you seek to unmake diversity itself. Preservation requires unification, Mukuro responded. The barriers between dimensions grow weaker each cycle. Eventually, a catastrophic collapse is inevitable unless all is made one again. As they spoke, Naruto felt something shifting within him, knowledge crystallizing from the genetic memories awakening in his cells. He understood, suddenly and with complete clarity, that both Arceus and Kaguya had intentionally created separation between dimensions, had deliberately established barriers and differences to prevent exactly what Mukuro proposed. Unity without diversity isn't preservation, Naruto found himself saying, words emerging from some deep ancestral knowledge. It's extinction. Mukuro's mask tilted slightly, the only indication of surprise. You access their memories already. Impressive, but incomplete understanding is dangerous. Come willingly and learn the full truth of your heritage. I think I'll learn it my own way, Naruto replied, feeling power building within him again. Not the familiar chakra he'd trained with for years, but something more fundamental, energy that predated the concept of ninjutsu itself. Mukuro raised a hand, and the dimensional entities surged forward simultaneously. Sakura leapt into action, her chakra-enhanced fists connecting with one entity that had solidified enough to become partially physical. Tsukihime moved with unexpected grace, her fingers tracing patterns in the air that seemed to disrupt the frequency of others. Mitsuko activated devices on both wrists, generating fields that temporarily forced several entities fully into this dimension, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. But there were too many. For each entity they neutralized, two more emerged from the portal above. Civilians screamed as buildings crumbled under assault, and even elite jonin struggled to defend against enemies that existed partially beyond physical reach. Enough! Naruto shouted, golden energy crackling around him with increasing intensity. Something was building inside him, pressure mounting beyond anything he'd experienced before, beyond even the Nine Tails' power. Mukuro sensed it too, floating backward slightly. Control yourself, Convergence child. Unrestrained manifestation at this stage could tear reality asunder. But Naruto wasn't listening. In that moment, his only thought was protecting his village, his people. The golden energy expanded outward in pulsing waves, each one carrying instinctive intent. To separate, to protect, to contain. Everyone get down, Tsukihime called out, dropping to one knee and pulling Sakura down beside her. Reality seemed to bend around Naruto as he threw his arms wide, channeling power through his entire body rather than just the prism. Golden light erupted from him in a perfect sphere, expanding outward at incredible speed. Where it touched the dimensional entities, they dissolved like mist under intense sunlight. Where it met buildings and people, it passed through harmlessly, leaving a subtle shimmer in its wake. The sphere continued expanding until it encompassed the entire village, then solidified into a translucent dome of golden energy. Outside the dome, time appeared to slow, the movements of distant birds becoming languid, falling debris hovering in mid-descent. Inside, a perfect pocket dimension had formed, a protected space partially disconnected from the primary reality. Naruto stood at its center, golden light still emanating from his body, eyes wide with shock at what he'd instinctively created. What did I just do? You created a dimensional bubble, Mitsuko explained, examining the barrier with professional interest. A localized pocket of altered space-time, temporarily separated from the primary dimensional flow. Quite impressive for a first attempt, actually. Is everyone safe? Naruto asked, looking around at the stunned faces of villagers and shinobi alike. For now, Tsukihime confirmed, rising gracefully to her feet. But maintaining this bubble requires continuous energy expenditure. You'll exhaust yourself eventually. Outside the golden dome, Mukuro floated at the edge of the barrier, mask pressed against the shimmering surface. Its voice penetrated faintly. Interesting solution, Convergence child. But temporary. We will wait. What happens when the bubble collapses? Sakura asked, recovering her composure with admirable speed given the circumstances. Nothing good, Mitsuko replied grimly. Those entities will rush in immediately. And there are more arriving through that portal every minute. Lady Tsunade appeared beside them, having fought her way through the chaos to reach the center of the phenomenon. Her sharp gaze took in the situation, lingering on Naruto's transformed appearance and the golden energy still flowing from him. Someone explain, she commanded, concisely. Mitsuko stepped forward with the confidence of a seasoned diplomat. Dimensional incursion targeting Naruto specifically. The attackers belong to a group called the Dimensional Conclave who seek to collapse all realities into one. Naruto has manifested previously dormant abilities related to his unique genetic heritage to create this temporary safe zone. Tsunade's eyebrows rose fractionally, the only indication of surprise she allowed herself. And these abilities come from a convergence of two divine bloodlines, Tsukihime answered. The original one, Arceus, creator of multiple dimensions, and Kaguya Otsutsuki, the Rab. It goddess who brought chakra to this world. I see, Tsunade said after a moment, her tone suggesting she'd process the implications later. Immediate priority is village security. How long can this barrier hold? Naruto felt the continuous drain on his newfound energy reserves. Maybe an hour at most. I don't really know how I'm doing this. Then we have 1 hour to evacuate civilians to secure bunkers and formulate a counterattack, Tsunade decided, immediately shifting to Hokage mode. Sakura, coordinate medical teams. Prioritize the wounded but prepare for mass casualties once the barrier falls. Yes, Lady Tsunade, Sakura acknowledged, casting one last concerned glance at Naruto before departing. You too, Tsunade addressed Mitsuko and Tsukihime, seem to know what we're dealing with. I want everything you know, specifically weaknesses we can exploit. The entities exist between dimensions, Mitsuko explained. Conventional attacks are largely ineffective unless air fully materialized in this reality. My stabilizers can force materialization temporarily, but I only have 2 devices. My clan developed techniques to disrupt their vibrational frequency, Tsukihime added. I can teach the basics to your Anbu, but mastery requires specialized training we don't have time for. What about sealing techniques? Tsunade asked. If we can't destroy them, perhaps we can contain them. Possible, Mitsuko considered, but standard sealing jutsu won't hold them. We'd need to modify the fundamental parameters to account for their extra-dimensional properties. As they discussed strategy, Naruto remained at the center of the Golden Dome, maintaining the barrier through sheer determination. The strain was becoming noticeable, sweat beaded on his forehead, and his breathing grew labored. Yet beneath the physical discomfort lay something else, a growing familiarity with the power flowing through him, as if long-dormant neural pathways were reactivating with each passing minute. A subtle shift in the barrier's resonance drew his attention upward. Mukuro had placed both hands against the golden surface and was channeling some kind of dark energy into it, creating spreading cracks in the dimensional membrane. The barrier's failing, Naruto called out, redirecting more power to the weakening sections. They're breaking through. Tsunade immediately barked orders to nearby Anbu, who dispersed to accelerate evacuation efforts. Mitsuko activated a communication device, speaking rapidly in code to unseen allies. We need more time, Tsukihime said, moving to Naruto's side. Let me help stabilize the barrier. She placed her hands against his back, channeling her own unique chakra into his network. Immediately, Naruto felt the burden lighten as her energy harmonized with his, reinforcing the Golden Dome. How are you doing that? He asked, amazed at how perfectly their energies synchronized. My clan has served as conduits for celestial energy for generations, she explained, her star-filled eyes glowing brighter with exertion. Our chakra is naturally compatible with divine frequencies. With Tsukihime's support, Naruto managed to repair the cracks Mukuro had created. But the effort cost them both. He could feel her trembling against his back, the continuous chakra expenditure pushing her toward exhaustion. We can't maintain this indefinitely, he said grimly. We don't need indefinitely, Mitsuko interjected, returning from her communication. Just 20 more minutes. Reinforcements are coming. What reinforcements? Tsunade demanded. I haven't authorized any allied requests. Mitsuko's expression remained carefully neutral. Let's just say I have connections outside traditional shinobi networks. Specialists in dimensional phenomena are en route. Before Tsunade could press further, a thunderous crack split the air as Mukuro redoubled its efforts against the barrier. The Golden Dome shuddered. Sections 2. RNING translucent as Naruto struggled to maintain cohesion. We don't have 20 minutes, he gasped, knees threatening to buckle despite Tsukihime's support. Then we need an alternative approach, Tsunade decided, her tactical mind rapidly assessing options. If we can't keep them out indefinitely, we need to close that portal. The only one who can potentially close it is Naruto, Mitsuko said. Using the same power that created this barrier, but directed specifically at the dimensional tear. But if I redirect the energy to close the portal, the protective bubble will collapse, Naruto pointed out. Everyone will be exposed. A moment of heavy silence followed as they contemplated the impossible choice. Finally, Tsunade spoke with the weight of leadership. The safety of the many must take priority. Close the portal, Naruto. Our shinobi will handle whatever comes through in the meantime. There might be another way, Tsukihime suggested, her voice strained with effort. Ancient texts speak of convergent vessels creating nexus points, locations where dimensional boundaries can be manipulated. In plain language, please, Tsunade requested tersely. Naruto could potentially create a secondary pathway. Tsukihime clarified, A controlled portal redirecting the entities away from Konoha to another location. Would that work? Naruto asked Mitsuko, recognizing her expertise in dimensional mechanics. The diplomat considered briefly. Theoretically, yes, but it would require precise control of extremely complex dimensional frequencies, something that usually takes years to master. I don't have years, Naruto replied with characteristic determination. I need to learn now. Mitsuko studied him intently, then nodded once. The basics are simple enough. See. Create a resonance pattern that matches the original portal but with a spatial vector pointed elsewhere. Your instincts should fill in the technical details, given your bloodline. Another crack Appy, read in the Golden Dome as Mukuro systematically attacked its weakest points. Time was running out. Where should I redirect them? Naruto asked, already gathering power for the attempt. Somewhere uninhabited, Tsunade insisted. The Shinkai Desert in Wind Country, Mitsuko suggested immediately. 300 miles of uninhabited wasteland. My colleagues are already gathering there to contain whatever comes through. With no better options available, Naruto nodded and began the process Mitsuko described. Focusing on the concept of redirection, he visualized a pathway connecting the original portal to the distant desert. Golden energy gathered between his hands, condensing into a swirling vortex of light that gradually took on structure and purpose. That's it, Mitsuko encouraged, monitoring the process with her instruments. Now establish the endpoint coordinates. Naruto had never been to the Shinkai Desert, but somehow he could picture it clearly, endless dunes under a merciless sun. No human settlements for hundreds of miles. The image locked into place within the swirling energy, creating a targeting vector. Now connect it to the original breach, Tsukihime instructed, still supporting him from behind. With a thrust of both hands, Naruto sent the golden vortex rocketing upward through the dome. It passed through the barrier without disrupting it, streaking toward the dimensional portal where Mukuro continued its assault. The vortex collided with the portal in a spectacular flash of light, momentarily blinding everyone watching. When vision cleared, the nature of the portal had changed. No longer a jagged tear leaking malevolent energy, it now resembled a structured gateway with one side still connected to wherever the entities originated, but the exit point now redirected to the distant desert. Mukuro floated before the transformed portal, mask tilted upward in apparent confusion as the flow of entities reversed, sucked back through the gateway toward the new destination. No, the being's multi-toned voice echoed. What have you done? Given you a new destination, Naruto called back, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction despite his exhaustion. If you want me so badly, you'll have to go through the proper channels. Mukuro's form rippled with what might have been rage. This changes nothing, Convergence child. We will meet again. With those ominous words, the being allowed itself to be pulled through the redirected portal along with its minions. As the last entity disappeared through the gateway, Naruto felt a massive surge of relief, quickly followed by total exhaustion. The golden dome flickered as his knees finally gave out. Tsukihime caught him before he could hit the ground, easing him gently onto the dirt. Easy, she murmured. You've expended enormous amounts of energy for someone just awakening to these abilities. The dome continued to fade, sections disappearing like golden mist until nothing remained but scattered motes of light drifting through the air. Around them, Konoha lay partially in ruins, buildings toppled, streets cracked, evidence of the brief but devastating attack visible in every direction. Yet miraculously, casualties appeared minimal. The advance warning and quick evacuation, combined with Naruto's protective barrier, had saved countless lives. Did we win? Naruto asked weakly, struggling to remain conscious. Temporarily, Mitsuko answered with pragmatic honesty. You've redirected them and bought us time, but they'll find another way to reach you eventually. The dimension, Al Conclave, is nothing if not persistent. Tsunade knelt beside him, hands already glowing with diagnostic jutsu. His chakra network is undergoing some kind of reconfiguration, she reported with professional detachment that didn't quite mask her concern. I've never seen anything like it. It's the awakening process, Tsukihime explained. His body is adapting to channel the convergent bloodlines. He needs rest and stabilization. Take him to the secure medical facility, Tsunade ordered, approaching medical nin. Full quarantine protocols, authorized personnel only. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, Naruto fought to remain conscious just a moment longer. Wait, he called weakly. The stone tablets. Tsukihime mentioned prophecies. I need to know what I'm becoming. Tsunade's expression softened slightly. There will be time for answers later, Naruto. For now, you need to recover. I'll bring the relevant texts, Tsukihime promised, squeezing his hand gently. Rest now. The next phase will be even more challenging. As medical nin carried him away, Naruto caught fragments of conversation between Tsunade and Mitsuko, tense words about jurisdiction, information sharing, and preparedness for future incursions. The diplomatic veneer had fallen away from Mitsuko, revealing something far more authoritative beneath, someone accustomed to operating outside conventional power structures. The last thing Naruto saw before consciousness faded was Tsukihime walking beside his stretcher, her star-filled eyes fixed protectively on him, one hand resting on an ancient scroll hanging at her waist. Despite everything, the pain, the confusion, the overwhelming strangeness of awakening to powers he didn't understand, Naruto felt an unexpected calm in her presence. The convergence has only begun, she whispered, perhaps thinking him already unconscious. But you won't face it alone, Naruto Uzumaki. This I promise you. Darkness claimed him then, but it wasn't the simple void of unconsciousness. Even in sleep, golden light danced at the edges of his awareness, and distant voices called to him from across dimensions, one resonant and multifaceted like the cosmos itself. The other hauntingly familiar in a way he couldn't quite place. Both spoke the same message, repeating in endless variation. Remember who you are becoming. Remember why we separated what must now converge. Asterisk. In the secure medical facility deep beneath Konoha, Naruto's unconscious form began to glow with subtle golden light. Monitoring equipment recorded impossible readings, energy patterns that defied classification. Brainwave activities across spectrums never before observed in humans, cellular regeneration occurring at rates that rewrote medical understanding. In a hidden chamber of the Hokage's residence, Tsunade examined ancient records unsealed from forbidden archives, fragmentary references to a time before the founding of hidden villages, before the emergence of the tailed beasts. Before even the arrival of the Otsutsuki clan. Faded illustrations depicted a white, equine deity creating stars and planets through sheer will, alongside images of a horned woman consuming divine fruit. Between them stood a shadowy figure with features of both creators, surrounded by either salvation or destruction. The ancient text was too degraded to determine which. In an abandoned observatory, Tsukihime activated communication devices untouched for generations, sending coded messages to distant outposts where the last scattered members of her clan might still maintain their vigil. The ancient prophecy was fulfilling itself, but not as their predecessors had anticipated. Adaptation would be necessary, protection paramount, and in the vast Shinkai desert, Mitsuko Kazuhana stood before the redirected portal. Surrounded by figures wearing technology far beyond current shinobi understanding. Dimensional stabilizers hummed, containing whatever might emerge while instruments recorded invaluable data about the breach. The convergence vessel is exactly as the calculations predicted, she reported to a shadowy figure visible only through a holographic communication device. Untrained but instinctively powerful, the conclave made their move earlier than anticipated. And the vessel's loyalty? The figure asked, voice distorted to prevent identification. Firmly with Konoha for now, Mitsuko answered. But that may change as the memories awaken. We should accelerate the contingency plan. Proceed with caution, the figure instructed. If the vessel truly contains both bloodlines, the implications extend beyond our current models. Observation remains priority, intervention only if absolutely necessary. As the communication ended, Mitsuko gazed thoughtfully at the swirling portal. Naruto Uzumaki, she murmured to herself, I wonder if you have any idea what you're about to become, or what forces are aligning around you. The desert wind carried her words away, low, faint among the dunes as the portal pulsed with otherworldly light, a beacon visible across dimensions, and a warning of changes yet to come. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Blood Awakening. Consciousness Ritu. RNED to Naruto in fragments. First sound. The rhythmic beep of medical equipment, hushed voices arguing in technical terms. Then sensation. Cool sheets against feverish skin, restraints around his wrists and ankles. Finally sight. A sterile white ceiling swimming into focus as his eyelids fluttered open. The air tasted of antiseptic and ozone, with an undercurrent of something else, something metallic yet ethereal. He's awake, someone announced. A face appeared above him, Shizune, dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept in days. How long? Naruto croaked, throat painfully dry. 3 days, she answered, pressing a straw to his lips. The water tasted strange, laced with minerals he could somehow individually identify: calcium, magnesium, trace elements of zinc and selenium. Memory crashed back with brutal force. The dimensional entities, the golden barrier, Mukuro's ominous promise. Naruto tried to sit up, only to be reminded of the restraints binding him to the bed. Why am I tied down? He demanded, a surge of panic rising in his chest. Precautionary, Shizune explained apologetically. During your unconsciousness, you've experienced episodes of energy discharge. Lady Tsunade deemed it safer for everyone. As if summoned by her name, the Hokage herself entered the room, accompanied by a woman Naruto didn't recognize. The stranger wore a white laboratory coat over practical clothing. Her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun secured with what appeared to be specialized measuring instruments rather than ordinary hairpins. Multiple devices hung from a utility belt around her waist, some blinking with colored lights, others emitting soft hums at varying frequencies. Good morning, Naruto, Tsunade greeted him with professional detachment. How are you feeling? Like my blood is trying to crawl out of my skin, he answered honestly. And I can taste the chemical composition of the air. So, not great. The unknown woman stepped forward, adjusting rectangular glasses that magnified her intense gray eyes. Fascinating. Heightened sensory perception extending to molecular composition. That's consistent with the original one's documented abilities. She spoke rapidly, words tumbling over each other in her excitement, her accent suggesting origins in the eastern provinces. Naruto, this is Dr. Rei Shimazaki, Tsunade introduced with barely concealed impatience. She's a leading researcher in metaphysical energy systems who arrived yesterday to assist with your case. To study me, you mean, Naruto translated flatly. To understand what's happening to you, Rei corrected, seeming genuinely surprised by his hostility. The energy signatures you're emitting are unlike anything previously recorded in scientific literature. They resonate across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously while maintaining quantum coherence at macroscopic scales. It's extraordinary. Her enthusiasm was so genuine that Naruto found his irritation fading slightly. Does that help explain why I feel like I'm being rebuilt from the inside out? Precisely, Rei exclaimed, eyes lighting up. She reached for one of her devices, a tablet-like screen displaying complex waveforms. Your cellular structure is undergoing systematic reconfiguration at the molecular level. Observable changes include increased mitochondrial density, novel protein structures in your neural pathways, and most remarkably, she paused for breath, the formation of entirely new organelles within your cells that appear to function as quantum resonance chambers. Tsunade cleared her throat meaningfully. Apologies, Rei adjusted her glasses self-consciously. I sometimes forget that not everyone finds cellular metamorphosis as captivating as I do. In simple terms, Tsunade translated, your body is changing to accommodate the awakening bloodlines. The process appears to be accelerating. As if confirming her assessment, pain lanced through Naruto's spine, sudden and severe enough to arch his back against the restraints. Golden light flared beneath his skin, illuminating his veins like luminescent rivers. Stabilization protocol, Tsunade barked. Shizune immediately activated a complex seal array built into the bed while Rei frantically adjusted settings on her equipment. The restraints tightened as Naruto convulsed, the pain intensifying beyond anything he'd experienced, beyond even the Nine Tails corrosive chakra. This was more fundamental, as if every atom in his body were being systematically disassembled and reconfigured. What's happening to me? He gasped between spasms. Accelerated genetic expression, Rei answered, monitoring readings with remarkable composure despite the chaos. The convergent bloodlines are rewriting your DNA faster than anticipated. Quote, through tear-blurred vision, Naruto saw Tsunade's hands glowing with medical chakra as she attempted to moderate the process. His chakra network is trying to accommodate the new energy pathways. The strain could kill him. The standard suppression approach is counterproductive, a new voice stated calmly. Tsukihime entered the room, no longer dressed in her distinctive attire but wearing simple meditation robes. Fighting the transformation will only increase the dissonance. We can't just let it proceed unchecked, Tsunade argued. His system could collapse entirely. Not if we guide rather than suppress, Tsukihime countered, approaching the bed with purposeful strides. The ancient texts are clear. Convergence must flow like water finding its natural course. Not be damned or diverted. Another wave of pain crashed through Naruto, this one accompanied by fragmentary visions, a vast hall of crystal pillars, a being of white light creating stars with mere thought. A horned woman standing before a massive tree with outstretched hands. The images weren't memories exactly, more like inherited knowledge attempting to surface through genetic recall. His brainwave patterns are shifting to delta theta gamma trimodal configuration, Ray reported with barely contained excitement. That's theoretically impossible unless his consciousness is operating across multiple planes simultaneously, Tsukihime finished. Release the physical restraints. They're anchoring him too firmly to this dimensional plane. Absolutely not, Tsunade rejected immediately. The energy discharges are happening precisely because he's fighting against dimensional transition, Tsukihime insisted. His blood remembers what his conscious mind doesn't yet comprehend. Trust me, Lady Hokage, I've spent my life preparing for this moment. The two women locked eyes in silent battle of wills while Naruto struggled against another wave of pain. This time, he felt something shifting within him, not just physical restructuring but a fundamental change in how he perceived reality itself. The room around him seemed to gain additional dimensions, layers of existence becoming visible that he previously couldn't comprehend. Please, he managed through gritted teeth. Let Tsukihime try. After a tense moment, Tsunade nodded sharply. Release the restraints, Shizune. But maintain the containment seals on the room itself. The moment the bindings fell away, Tsukihime placed her hands directly on Naruto's temples. Her touch was cool against his burning skin, her chakra a soothing counterpoint to the chaotic energy surging through his system. Don't fight the memories, she instructed softly. Let them come. They're part of you, have always been part of you. Naruto closed his eyes, surrendering to the guidance of her voice. Immediately, the fragmentary visions crystallized into coherent sequences, not random images but a chronological history spanning eons. He saw Arceus, the original one, majestic and terrible in its pristine power, creating the multiverse through sheer will, establishing fundamental forces, dimensional boundaries, the very concept of time itself. He witnessed the birth of countless worlds, some flourishing with life, others remaining barren but necessary for cosmic balance. Then came Kaguya's arrival in his specific dimension, a princess from another world discovering the god tree, consuming its fruit, and transcending her original nature to become the rabbit goddess. He felt her wonder at newfound power, her benevolence as she ended wars with divine authority, her gradual corruption as that same power isolated her from humanity. Most significantly, he witnessed their meeting, Arceus and Kaguya, creator and ascended mortal. Recognizing in each other a reflection of divine loneliness. Their brief communion produced something unprecedented, a fusion of cosmic creation energy and chakra that threatened to destabilize reality itself. In wisdom or fear, the memory couldn't distinguish which, they separated again, each taking a portion of that combined power and establishing barriers between scions to prevent catastrophic convergence. Yet they left behind safeguards, bloodlines that would remain dormant for generations until cosmic necessity demanded their reactivation. As the visions faded, Naruto opened his eyes to find everyone staring at him with varying expressions of concern and fascination. The pain had subsided, replaced by a strange sense of expansive awareness. What did you see? Tsukihime asked gently, her hands still resting lightly against his temples. Everything, Naruto whispered, overwhelmed by the weight of cosmic history now residing in his consciousness. They knew each other, Arceus and Kaguya. They met across dimensions. Their powers combined created something that scared them both. Ray was frantically taking notes, her expression alight with scientific enthusiasm. This confirms my theoretical framework regarding the fundamental unity of multiverse energy systems. It confirms the ancient texts, Tsukihime corrected quietly. The convergence ILD would remember what was intentionally forgotten. Child. Naruto frowned, pushing himself upright as strength gradually returned to his limbs. I'm not anyone's child but Minato and Kushina's. It's a term of prophecy. Not literal parentage, Tsukihime explained. The bloodlines of the original one and the rabbit goddess have flowed through countless generations, fragmented and diluted, iting for the precise genetic combination that could sustain their convergence. And that's me, because of some cosmic coincidence. There are no coincidences at this scale, Tsukihime replied with gentle certainty. The 9 tails being sealed within you, your Uzumaki heritage, your father's unique chakra signature, all were necessary factors creating the vessel that could contain these powers without being consumed by them. Speaking of the 9 tails, Tsunade interjected, what's happening with that seal? Our diagnostics show significant changes to its configuration. Naruto turned his awareness inward, seeking the familiar presence of Kurama within his mindscape. To his surprise, the traditional sewer-like environment had transformed into something resembling the crystal hall from his visions. The massive gate containing the 9 tails had evolved into an elegant archway of golden energy, through which Kurama observed him with unusual solemnity. So you've finally awakened to your true heritage, Kit. The fox rumbled, its voice resonating differently than before, less malevolent, more contemplative. You knew about this? Naruto asked, momentarily forgetting the physical world around his body. Not specifically, but I've existed since the earliest days of this world. I sensed something ancient in your chakra, something that predated even the Sage of 6 Paths. Kurama shifted its massive form, 9 tails swaying thoughtfully. The changes happening now are affecting me as well. Our energies are harmonizing in ways I never thought possible with a human host. As that? Good. Uncertain. The fox admitted with surprising candor. But preferable to our previous antagonism. We are becoming something new together, Naruto Uzumaki. I find myself curious about the outcome. Returning his awareness to the medical room, Naruto found 4 pairs of eyes watching him expectantly. The 9 tails and I are integrating somehow, he reported, Uggling to articulate the complex energetic changes. Not merging exactly, but becoming more compatible. The seal is evolving to accommodate the new energies. Fascinating, Ray murmured, adjusting instruments that measured his chakra output. The tailed beasts were created from the 10 tails, which itself originated from the god tree that granted Kaguya her power. There's a direct energetic lineage that may be facilitating this integration. Tsunade's expression remained skeptical. That doesn't explain the Arceus component. According to Tsukihime, this original one comes from an entirely different dimensional system. Actually, it might, Ray countered, warming to the theoretical challenge. If we consider the multiverse as essentially fractal in nature, with similar patterns repeating at different dimensional scales, then both Arceus and Kaguya represent nodal points of conscious energy achieving self-awareness within their respective systems. They're compatible yet distinct. Churish could explain why their powers can converge without mutual annihilation. Naruto blinked at her, both impressed and bewildered by the rapid-fire theorizing. Does any of that help me control whatever's happening to me? That's where I come in, Ray said with unexpected warmth. I've been studying the metaphysical properties of chakra for years, specifically how it interfaces with dimensional barriers. When reports came in about unprecedented energy signatures in Konoha, I may have invited myself. She arrived at the gates demanding access to the dimensional anomaly, without official clearance or invitation. Tsunade clarified dryly. Fortunately, her credentials were substantial enough to prevent her immediate ejection. Academia often moves too slowly for breakthrough discoveries, Ray defended, adjusting her glasses self-consciously, especially when those discoveries are rewriting our fundamental understanding of reality itself. Despite everything, Naruto found himself smiling at her enthusiasm. There was something refreshingly genuine about her scientific passion, untainted by fear or political calculation. Tentatively, he swung his legs over the edge of the bed, testing his stability. His body felt simultaneously heavier and lighter, as if gravity's effect on him had somehow recalibrated. The simple hospital gown they'd dressed him in seemed uncomfortably restrictive now, the texture of the fabric registering against his skin with heightened sensitivity. Easy, Tsunade cautioned, moving to support him if necessary. Your body is still adjusting. I feel. Naruto paused, searching for words to describe the strange new awareness flowing through him. Different. Like I can sense everything around me in ways I never could before. Your perceptual framework is expanding. Rei explained, monitoring readings on her devices. The energy signatures suggest you're developing the ability to perceive what I've theoretically termed type energies, fundamental forces that exist across dimensional boundaries. She means you're beginning to see the essential nature of all things, Tsukihime translated, her star-filled eyes watching him with quiet understanding. In the ancient texts, the original one perceived 18 distinct elemental forces that compose reality itself. 18, Naruto echoed, as if responding to the question. His vision shifted subtly, overlaying the room with glowing auras of varied colors. Tsunade radiated a steady green energy that suggested healing and vitality. Shizune's aura showed similar proper ties but with undertones of purple precision. Rei practically sparkled with bright yellow intellectual energy, while Tsukihime emanated a mysterious blend of silvery psychic resonance and deep blue cosmic awareness. I can see them, he whispered, amazed. Everyone has different colors, different frequencies. Rei's excitement visibly intensified. You're perceiving type energies. This confirms my hypothesis about cross-dimensional energy classification systems. Can you describe the different categories you're seeing? Dr. Shimazaki, Tsunade interrupted firmly, perhaps the detailed scientific interrogation could wait until my patient has had a chance to adjust to his new perceptual abilities. Before Rei could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began flashing as a voice over the intercom announced, security breach in Sector 7. All personnel implement containment protocol Theta immediately. Tsunade's expression hardened. That's this sector. She turned to Shizune. Activate the secondary barriers. No one enters or leaves until I verify their identity personally. Shizune nodded sharply and moved to a control panel near the door, initiating a complex sequence of seals. What's happening? Naruto demanded, rising fully to his feet despite the lingering discomfort. Unknown, Tsunade answered tersely. But given recent events, I doubt it's coincidental. As if confirming her suspicion, a tremendous impact shook the facility, causing instruments to crash to the floor and lights to flicker ominously. Naruto's newly enhanced senses detected multiple chakra signatures approaching, disciplined, synchronized, and unmistakably hostile. Anbu, he identified, but not your regular units. Their chakra signatures feel different. Colder. Root. Tsunade spat the word like a curse. Danzo was supposed to disband them years ago. Another impact rattled the room, closer this time. Dust rained from ceiling panels as the structural integrity of the facility began to fail. They're here for me, Naruto realized, the pattern suddenly clear. Danzo wants to secure the convergence vessel for himself. Not just Danzo, Tsukihime warned, her expression grave. I sense others, chakra signatures masked in ways that suggest specialized training beyond standard shinobi techniques. The door to the medical room suddenly bulged inward as if struck by tremendous force. Metal screamed in protest as unseen hands physically tore it from reinforced hinges. Through the newly created opening stepped 6 figures in modified Anbu GE. Their standard masks replaced with featureless white faces marked only with the kanji for vessel. Uzumaki Naruto, the lead figure stated in a voice devoid of emotion. You will come with us for secured containment and study. Resistance is inadvisable. Tsunade stepped forward, chakra already gathering for combat. As Hokage of the Hidden Leaf, I order you to stand down immediately. Naruto is under my direct protection. With respect, Lady Hokage, the Anbu replied without inflection, this matter supersedes standard village authority. The convergence event represents an existential threat requiring specialized containment. On whose authority? Tsunade demanded. The dimensional architects, came the unsettling response. An interdimensional security cooperative established to prevent catastrophic breaches between realities. Rei gasped audibly. The architects, but they're theoretical, a hypothetical organization mentioned in ancient scrolls. They can't possibly exist in modern times. Your information is outdated. Drive. Shimazaki, the Anbu stated. The architects have operated continuously since the First Dimensional War, maintaining stability across borders most never perceive. Enough talk, Naruto interrupted, golden energy already beginning to flow around his form. I'm not going anywhere with you. Compliance is not required, the Anbu responded, hands forming unfamiliar seals. Merely preferred. They attacked in perfect synchronization, 3 engaging Tsunade and Shizune while the other 3 focused on Naruto. Their movements displayed a fluidity that seemed almost inhuman, limbs bending at impossible angles to avoid counterattacks. Naruto instinctively channeled the golden energy, expecting it to respond as before. Instead, it flared chaotically, racing along his nerve pathways with painful intensity. His control was still too undeveloped, the power too raw. A specialized binding jutsu caught his left arm, energy-suppressing seals activating on contact. Naruto felt the golden power within him react violently to the attempted suppression, surging against his skin from within like a caged beast seeking escape. Don't fight it, Tsukihime called out, engaged in her own battle with an Anbu using strange crystalline weapons. Direct it with intent, not force. Intent. The concept resonated with his fragmented genetic memories. Arceus had shaped reality through focused intention rather than brute force manipulation. Naruto ceased struggling against the wild energy and instead visualized what he wanted: freedom from restraint, protection for his allies. The golden energy responded immediately, flowing with sudden precision to shatter the binding jutsu. It continued outward in a controlled wave that separated friend from foe with uncanny accuracy, pushing the specialized Anbu back while leaving Tsunade, Shizune, Rei, and Tsukihime untouched. Fascinating application of type-selective repulsion, Rei commented, somehow. Managing scientific observation even while dodging attacks. The energy discriminates based on intention rather than physical properties. Less analysis, more action. Tsunade barked, slamming a chakra-enhanced fist into the floor. The impact created a shockwave that temporarily disrupted the Anbu formation. Taking advantage of the momentary confusion, Naruto concentrated on his newfound type perception. Each Anbu radiated a distinctive dark purple energy that felt artificial, chakra pathways modified to accommodate dimensional frequencies not naturally occurring in humans. They're not fully human anymore, he realized aloud. Their chakra networks have been artificially altered to process dimensional energy. First-generation architects, Tsukihime confirmed grimly, her fingers tracking patterns in the air that disrupted the strange crystals their opponents wielded. Humans modified to serve as dimensional anchors. The process sacrifices aspects of their humanity for enhanced perceptual capabilities. One of the modified Anbu broke through Tsunade's defense, moving with impossible speed to appear directly before Naruto. Up close, through the featureless mask, Naruto glimpsed eyes that weren't eyes at all but swirling vortices of dimensional energy. The vessel will be secured, the being stated, producing a specialized sealing tag unlike any Naruto had encountered. Before the tag could make contact, a blur of motion intercepted the Anbu. Rei, moving with surprising agility for a scientist, had interposed herself between them. In her hand she held what appeared to be a prototype device emitting pulses of concentrated chakra. Your dimensional frequency is unstable, she announced with sudden authority. All academic hesitancy vanished from her tone. This resonate, or will collapse your modified pathways if activated at this range. Stand down. The Anbu hesitated, assessing the unfamiliar threat. That moment of uncertainty was enough for Naruto to act. Channeling golden energy with newfound precision, he created a localized field that temporarily nullified the dimensional properties of the modified Anbu's chakra, rendering them briefly ordinary humans. Tsunade capitalized immediately, delivering precisely targeted strikes that incapacitated rather than killed. Within seconds, all 6 lay unconscious on the rubble-strewn floor. We need to move, Tsunade decided instantly. This facility is compromised, and there will be more coming. Where can we go? Naruto asked, the adrenaline of combat fading to reveal renewed discomfort as his transformation continued. If these architects have infiltrated even Anbu, I have a secure location, Tsukihime offered. Another observatory, farther from the village but better equipped for dimensional research. And better defended against intrusion, Rei added with surprising knowledge, earning a sharp look from Tsukihime. What? The Tsukigami observatories are mentioned in several ancient texts I've studied. Their defensive capabilities are quite renowned among those who research dimensional phenomena. How much do you actually know about all this, Drive? Shimazaki. Tsunade asked with newfound suspicion. Rei adjusted her glasses, suddenly looking uncomfortable. Theoretically, quite a lot. Practically, I'm learning along with everyone else. My research has been largely academic until now. We can discuss everyone's true motivations after we're secure, Naruto interjected, another wave of transformation pain beginning to build in his system. I don't think I can control another energy surge if it happens here. That pragmatic assessment ended further debate. Within minutes they had gathered essential equipment and medical supplies, preparing to move through a maintenance tunnel. That Tsunade assured them remained unknown to most Anbu. As they prepared to depart, Naruto paused beside the unconscious forms of their attackers. Despite the threat they had posed, he felt an unexpected empathy for them, humans modified to serve purposes they might not have chosen freely. What happens to them? He asked Tsunade. Secure containment and thorough interrogation, she answered without hesitation. We need to understand the extent of this, dimensional architect's, infiltration. They were human once, Naruto pointed out quietly. And maybe again, with proper treatment, Rei interjected. Her scientific detachment softening momentarily. Their modifications appear reversible with the right approach. Something shifted in Tsunade's expression, a brief acknowledgement of the compassion motivating Naruto's concern. I'll ensure they're treated as patients rather than simply prisoners, she conceded. But my priority remains the security of this village and everyone in it, including you, Naruto. That was all he could ask for under the circumstances. With a final glance at the fallen Anbu, Naruto followed the others into the maintenance tunnel, every step carrying I am further from the life he had known and deeper into his transforming reality. The journey to Tsukiheim's observatory tested Naruto's endurance in unexpected ways. His evolving senses made the underground passage a symphony of overwhelming input. He could perceive water flowing through distant pipes, feel the subtle electromagnetic fields generated by power systems, even detect the passage of insects through minuscule cracks in the concrete. Focus on my voice, Tsukiheim instructed, noticing his discomfort. Use it as an anchor for your consciousness while your perception expands. Her guidance helped, providing stability amid the sensory chaos. By concentrating on the melodic cadence of her speech, Naruto managed to establish rudimentary filters for his new awareness selectively, dampening inputs that threatened to overwhelm him. After what felt like hours navigating increasingly ancient tunnels, they emerged into a forest clearing bathed in afternoon sunlight. The sudden transition from underground darkness to natural illumination would normally have been disorienting, but Naruto's enhanced vision adjusted instantly, another manifestation of his evolving physiology. The observatory is just ahead. Tsukiheim indicated a seemingly empty hillside covered in ancient oak trees. Its concealment jutsu responds only to those carrying Tsukigami blood or those granted specific access. She approached the hillside with purposeful steps, placing her palm against an unremarkable boulder. Chakra flowed from her hand in complex patterns, not the standard blue energy Naruto was accustomed to, but a silvery luminescence that reminded him of moonlight filtered through clouds. Reality rippled like water disturbed by a stone, revealing what had been hidden, not a simple structure, but a complex of domed buildings constructed from some opalescent material that shifted colors with the changing angle of sunlight. The architecture followed no standard design, featuring curves and spirals that seemed to reference cosmic patterns rather than human aesthetic preferences. This observatory was constructed during the second star alignment, approximately 2,700 years ago, Tsukiheim explained as she led them toward the main entrance. It has been continuously maintained by my clan, though few have actually resided here in recent generations. It's beautiful, Rei breathed, her scientific detachment momentarily replaced by genuine wonder. The proportions follow perfect celestial ratios, the golden spiral repeated across multiple scales. Form and function are inseparable in Tsukigami architecture. Tsukiheim acknowledged with subtle pride. The structures themselves serve as instruments for observing cosmic phenomena. Inside, the observatory revealed its true purpose. The central chamber housed a massive orrery unlike any Naruto had ever seen, not a simple model of planets and moons but a complex representation of multiple dimensional layers, each rendered in different materials that caught light in unique ways. Above this mechanical wonder, the domed ceiling appeared transparent despite the hillside that should have blocked the view, offering an unobstructed perspective of the sky. How is this possible? Tsunade asked, gesturing toward the paradoxical ceiling. Dimensional folding, Ray answered before Tsukihime could respond. The structure exists partially in a pocket dimension with different spatial properties. Brilliant application of theoretical principles. Tsukihime gave the scientist a measured look. Your knowledge of dimensional mechanics exceeds what's typically available in academic circles. Drive. Shimazaki. I've had access to unusual reference materials, Ray admitted, suddenly finding her equipment extremely interesting to examine. My university position is relatively recent. Before that, I conducted independent research in rather unorthodox circumstances. Before Tsukihime could press further, Naruto gasped and doubled over. Golden light flaring beneath his skin with renewed intensity. The transformation process was accelerating again, causing visible changes now, his hair taking on subtle golden highlights. His iris is shifting from pure blue to a more complex coloration with rings of amber surrounding his pupils. Get him to the stabilization chamber, Tsukihime instructed urgently, already moving toward a doorway. The resonance panels can help moderate the dimensional flux during critical transformation phases. They helped Naruto through a curved corridor into a hexagonal room whose walls consist entirely of crystalline panels etched with microscopic seal arrays. The air felt different here, thicker somehow, as if the dimensional boundaries were more permeable. This chamber was designed to observe stars during dimensional transit, Tsukihime explained as they eased Naruto onto a circular platform at the center. But it can also help stabilize beings experiencing dimensional shift. A fascinating adaptation of astronomical equipment for biological applications, Ray murmured, immediately connecting her monitoring devices to ports seamlessly integrated into the chamber's design, as if they had been created for exactly this purpose. Pain crashed through Naruto in waves, more intense than before but somehow more structured, less like random agony and more like deliberate reconfiguration. The golden energy flowing through him no longer fought his control but instead seemed to be teaching him, each surge carrying information encoded within the discomfort. What's happening to him? Tsunade demanded, medical chakra already gathering around her hands as she prepared to intervene. The convergent bloodlines are fully activating, Tsukihime answered, initiating sequences on control panels around the chamber. The preliminary changes were merely preparation. This is the true awakening. As if confirming her assessment, Naruto's consciousness expanded dramatically, breaking free from the confines of his physical form. He perceived the observatory from multiple angles simultaneously, saw himself lying on the platform surrounded by concerned faces, while also viewing the complex from above, from below, from within the very walls themselves. More significantly, he began perceiving timelines, not just the present moment but echoes of the past resonating through the observatory's ancient structure. He witnessed generations of Tsukigami observers monitoring the skies, recording data, maintaining vigilant watch for signs of cosmic significance. He saw Tsukihime as a child, brought here by an elderly man with the same star-filled eyes, learning her heritage through direct communion with the observatory itself. And beyond the local timeline, he glimpsed fragments of cosmic history, Arceus creating the fundamental forces that would eventually allow stars to form, planets to coalesce, life to emerge. Kaguya discovering the God Tree, consuming its fruit, bringing chalk raw into a world that had never known such power. Most disturbingly, he witnessed shadows of potential futures, branching possibilities dependent on choices not yet made. In some, the golden energy flow wing through him brought healing and harmony. In others, that same power twisted into something destructive beyond comprehension. His neural pathways are reconfiguring to process multidimensional input, Ray reported, reading complex data from her instruments. The pattern matches theoretical models of consciousness expansion, but at an accelerated rate that should be fatal to an ordinary human. He is no longer ordinary, Tsukihime responded simply, nor entirely human in the conventional sense. Naruto wanted to protest, to assert his humanity. His identity is Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf, son of Minato and Kushina. But the expanding awareness made such simple definitions increasingly inadequate. He was still Naruto, yes, but also something more, a convergence point where cosmic forces met and transformed. Within his mindscape, Kurama observed the changes with unusual solemnity. Your transformation affects me as well, Kit. The barriers between us are becoming permeable. Indeed, Naruto could feel the Nine Tails consciousness merging partially with his own, their previously separate chakras harmonizing in unprecedented ways. Not a forced subjugation as he had once attempted, nor the controlled cooperation they had eventually established, but something new, a symphony of energies resonating across multiple frequencies. We are becoming something that has never existed before, Kurama continued. Sounding more contemplative than Naruto had ever heard the normally sardonic fox. Neither fully human nor tailed beast nor divine entity, but a convergence of all three. The implications were staggering. If even Kurama, a being who had existed since the earliest days of chakra, found these changes unprecedented, what did that mean for Naruto's future? In the physical world, the crystalline panels surrounding him began to respond to his transformation, resonating with harmonic frequencies that helped structure the chaotic energy. Golden light reflected and refracted through the chamber, creating patterns of increasing complexity, mathematical expressions of cosmic principles rendered in luminous geometry. The chamber is synchronizing with his transformation frequency, Tsukihime explained, her voice carrying a hint of awe despite her lifelong preparation for this moment. It's helping stabilize the process. His vital signs are all over the place, Tsunade reported. Medical expertise momentarily inadequate for what she was witnessing. Heart rate fluctuating between 30 and 300 beats per minute, brainwave patterns shifting across spectrums we don't even have classifications for, cellular division accelerated by factors of thousands in some tissues. Yet he's not dying, Ray noted with academic fascination. The system is finding new equilibrium states rather than collapsing. It's adaptive chaos theory in biological form. Naruto barely registered their commentary, too immersed in the continuing expansion of his consciousness. The genetic memories were integrating now, becoming accessible knowledge rather than overwhelming visions. He understood, suddenly and with perfect clarity, why Arceus and Kaguya had separated their combined power. Why dimensional boundaries were necessary, why convergence was both essential and dangerous. The multiverse existed in delicate balance, infinite diversity contained within fundamental unity. Separate dimensions allowed for different expressions of possibility, different laws of physics, different forms of life and consciousness. Yet all remained connected through underlying cosmic principles that transcended individual realities. When Arceus and Kaguya had briefly united their powers, the resulting convergence threatened that essential diversity, a single consciousness, wielding authority over all possible expressions of existence. In wisdom or fear, the distinction remained unclear. Even in genetic memory, they had chosen separation, establishing boundaries that served the precious multiplicity of creation. Yet they had also embedded within those boundaries the potential for future reconnection, bloodlines that would eventually produce a vessel capable of harmonizing their divided powers should cosmic necessity demand it. Not to dominate or homogenize the multiverse, but to maintain its fundamental balance when threatened by forces seeking its destruction. Forces like the dimensional architects and their opposites, the dimensional conclave, organizations representing the extremes of cosmic philosophy. The architects sought rigid separation between realities, while the conclave pursued complete unification. Both, in their absolutism, threatened the delicate equilibrium that allowed the multiverse to flourish. As these realizations crystallized in Naruto's expanding consciousness, the physical transformation reached its culmination. Golden light erupted from his body in a perfect sphere, temporarily blinding everyone in the chamber. When vision cleared, the changes were unmistakable. Naruto stood at the center of the platform, no longer racked with pain but radiating quiet power. His appearance had shifted subtly but significantly, hair containing permanent golden streaks that caught light like metallic filaments, eyes displaying ring patterns reminiscent of both the Rinnegan and something more ancient, skin occasionally showing luminous patterns beneath the surface when he moved. Most notably, a small geometric symbol had manifested on his forehead, neither exactly the mark of Arceus nor Kaguya's third eye, but something that incorporated elements of both. Naruto. Tsunade questioned cautiously, medical chakra still gathered around her hands. I'm still me, he reassured her, his voice carrying new harmonic undertones. That resonated pleasantly in the crystalline chamber. Just more than I was before. Rei's instruments continued recording data, their displays showing readings that defied conventional categorization. The transformation appears to have stabilized at a new baseline, she reported with barely contained excitement. His cellular structure has incorporated elements that shouldn't be biologically possible. Quantum resonance chambers fully integrated with his chakra network, neural pathways operating across dimensional frequencies, mitochondria producing energy types previously unobservable in biological systems. How do you feel? Tsukihime asked, her star-filled eyes studying him with particular intensity. Connected, Naruto answered after thoughtful consideration. To everything. Lick. I can perceive the relationships between all things, not just what exists now but what has existed and what might exist. He flexed his fingers experimentally, watching golden energy dance across his skin like living light. But also more grounded than before. The chaotic energy has found its structure. He took an experimental step forward, adjusting to the strange new lightness in his movements. Gravity seemed to affect him differently now, as if he could partially choose how much influence it exerted over his body. The transformation isn't complete, Tsukihime noted, observing subtle fluctuations in his aura. This is merely the first stable plateau in a longer process. Great, Naruto responded with a flash of his familiar dry humor. Looking forward to the next round of cosmic agony. The moment of levity broke the clinical tension that had pervaded the chamber, reminding everyone that despite the extraordinary changes, Naruto's essential personality remained intact, determined, resilient. Maintaining perspective even in unprecedented circumstances. Tsunade approached cautiously, medical training compelling her to verify his condition through direct examination. May I? She asked, hands hovering near his transformed form. Of course, Naruto consented, holding still as her diagnostic jutsu assessed his altered physiology. Fascinating, she murmured, professional. Detachment temporarily overcoming her concern. Your chakra network has developed entirely new pathways integrated with the standard Tenketsu system. And your cells, she trailed off, adjusting her diagnostic technique to comprehend what she was observing. Your cellular regeneration rate exceeds anything I've ever encountered, beyond even your previous healing abilities. The original one possessed infinite regenerative capacity. Tsukihime explained. Cellular damage simply couldn't persist in its presence. That aspect of the bloodline appears to have awakened fully. Which will be extremely useful if more architects or conclave agents come looking for me, Naruto noted practically. They will, Tsukihime confirmed without sugar-coating the reality. Your awakening represents a fundamental shift in dimensional dynamics. Both factions have anticipated this moment for millennia, though neither expected the convergence to manifest quite this way. Because I'm just Naruto, he concluded with a small smile. Not what either side planned for. Precisely. Their prophecies and calculations predicted a vessel that would embody either perfect separation or perfect unity. Instead, you maintain your individual identity while incorporating these cosmic powers, a third option neither faction anticipated. Which makes you extremely dangerous to their respective agendas, Rei added. Finally looking up from her instruments. And extremely valuable to anyone seeking to understand dimensional mechanics without ideological constraints. The implied self-inclusion in that last category didn't escape anyone's notice. Tsunade fixed the scientist with a penetrating stare. Which brings us back to the question of your convenient arrival just as these events began unfolding. Drive. Shimazaki. Rei adjusted her glasses nervously, the gesture emphasizing the intelligence behind her gray eyes. As I mentioned, my research has focused on metaphysical energy systems, particularly THOs that might explain dimensional boundaries. When sensors throughout the continent detected unprecedented energy signatures from Konoha, I prioritized investigation. Sensors that shouldn't exist with current technology. Tsukihime noted pointedly, unless you have access to resources beyond standard research parameters. The scientist sighed, seeming to reach an internal decision. I wasn't entirely forthcoming about my background. Before joining the university, I was involved in an independent research collective studying dimensional anomalies. We developed specialized equipment for detecting fluctuations in the barriers between realities. This collective, Tsunade pressed, what was its purpose? Understanding, Ray answered simply. No alignment with either the architects or the conclave. We believed knowledge should precede ideology, that comprehending the multiverse's true nature must come before deciding how it should be maintained. And when did this collective disband? Tsukihime asked perceptively. Ray's expression clouded. 3 years ago. An accident during an experiment exposed several researchers, myself included, to concentrated dimensional energy. Most didn't survive. Those of us who did found ourselves changed. Able to perceive aspects of reality others couldn't. You're dimensionally sensitive, Naruto realized, suddenly understanding he unique yellow-gold aura he perceived around her. That's how you developed theories that matched what I'm experiencing. Yes, she confirmed with visible relief at being understood. The exposure altered my perceptual framework. I can't manipulate dimensional energy as you can, but I can observe and measure it with unusual precision. My instruments are designed to translate those perceptions into data others can interpret. Tsunade's suspicion didn't entirely fade, but her expression softened somewhat. And your interest in Naruto's transformation? Purely academic. Knowledge is never purely academic when it concerns fundamental reality, Ray countered with unexpected passion. But if you're asking whether I have ulterior motives beyond understanding what's happening, no. I seek comprehension, not control. Her sincerity resonated through Naruto's enhanced perception. The scientist genuinely believed what she was saying, though like most humans, her motivations contained zities even she might not fully acknowledge. Curiosity tinged with ambition, desire for knowledge colored by personal validation, genuine concern for cosmic balance influenced by individual experience. I believe her, Naruto stated simply. And right now, we need all the help we can get. That pragmatic assessment effectively ended the interrogation, at least temporarily. Tsunade didn't appear entirely satisfied but acknowledged the immediate priorities with a sharp nod. Very well, Dr. Shimazaki stays for now, under observation. Our immediate concern is understanding the full implications of Naruto's transformation and preparing for the inevitable attempts to exploit it. Starting with these, Tsukihime said, moving to a circular table at the chamber's edge. She pressed her palm against its surface, causing a hidden compartment to slide open, revealing several ancient stone tablets covered in script too small and complex for ordinary eyes to decipher. The prophecies of convergence, she explained, carefully lifting the first tablet. Recorded by my ancestors during the First Dimensional War, when Arceus and Kaguya's brief union created ripples across reality itself. You can read these, Tsunade asked skeptically, examining the seemingly microscopic inscriptions. As can Naruto now, Tsukihime replied. The script is encoded to be legible only to those with enhanced perceptual capabilities. Indeed, as Naruto approached the tablet, the impossibly small markings resolved into clear text, a sophisticated language that he somehow understood despite never having studied it. The tablet described the original separation of powers, the establishment of dimensional boundaries, and the conditions under which convergence might again become necessary. When barriers between worlds grow thin through malice or neglect, he read aloud, translating the ancient text. When forces of absolute division and absolute unity threaten the precious diversity of creation, the bloodlines shall awaken in a vessel prepared through generations of unconscious selection. Neither perfectly divine nor perfectly mortal, this convergence child shall rebalance what has fallen into discord. That's considerably less cryptic than most prophecies, Tsunade noted dryly. My ancestors weren't interested in mystical ambiguity, Tsukihime explained with a hint of pride. They were celestial scientists recording observations and calculations with precision. Naruto moved to the second tablet, this one containing diagrams of energy systems alongside prophetic text. The vessel shall manifest 18 fundamental forces, each corresponding to an essential aspect of creation. Through their harmonization, balance may be restored without sacrificing diversity or connection. The type energies, Ray breathed, recognizing the diagrams from her theoretical work. Fire, water, earth, air, lightning, psychic, dark, light, metal, plant, insect, draconic, spectral, crystalline, temporal, spatial, vital. and void, the fundamental building blocks of all realities. And apparently, I'm supposed to master all of them, Naruto added, not entirely comfortable with the cosmic responsibility being placed upon him by ancient prophecy. The third tablet proved more immediately concerning. Its text described factional responses to the convergence event, how different cosmic organizations would attempt to capture, control, or eliminate the vessel depending on their philosophical alignment. The architects shall seek to fragment the vessel, distributing its power across diamonds. Ional anchors to maintain rigid separation. The conclave shall attempt to accelerate and corrupt the convergence, using the vessel as catalyst for total unification. Between these extremes, the vessel must forge its own path or all diversity perishes. Asterisk. Cheerful, Naruto commented with grim humor. No pressure or anything. There's more, Tsukihime said, revealing a fourth tablet that appeared newer than the others. Its script freshly carved. This was added by my grandmother in her final years, based on astronomical observations that suggested imminent convergence. This tablet contained, not prophecy but strategic intelligence, known operatives of both the architects and conclave within the shinobi world, potential allies unaligned with either faction, locations of dimensional weak points where incursions were most likely. She was tracking their movements for decades, Tsukihime explained, a touch of sorrow coloring her voice. When she realized convergence would occur during my lifetime, she prepared as thoroughly as possible before her passing. That explains why you were placed with the Hyuga clan, Tsunade realized. Your grandmother positioned you close to Konoha Beka. She calculated the convergence would center here. Yes, though I don't think even she anticipated Naruto specifically as the vessel. The calculations suggested only a geographic probability, not a particular individual. Throughout this conversation, Naruto had been processing the genetic memories still integrating with his consciousness. Something about the tablets triggered a specific recollection, Arceus and Kaguya's final communion before their deliberate separation. They had created 3 specialized artifacts designed to help guide the future convergence if it became necessary. The Adamant Orb, the Lustrous Orb, and the Gricious Orb, he said suddenly, the names emerging from ancestral knowledge. Where are they? Tsukihime's star-filled eyes widened in surprise. You remember the Trinity Orbs. Even I know of them only through obscure references in the observatory archives. Not remember exactly, Naruto tried to explain. More like, inherit the knowledge. Arceus created them as stabilization mechanisms for dimensional manipulation. Kaguya infused them with specialized chakra properties. Together, they form a system for safely managing the convergent powers. Why grandmother spent her life searching for them, Tsukihime revealed. She believed they had been scattered across continents as a safeguard, entrusted to 3 separate guardian lineages. She identified potential locations for 2 but was unable to confirm before her death. We need to find them, Naruto stated with sudden certainty. Without proper stabilization, these powers could become easily difficult to control as they continue developing. One problem at a time, Tsunade cautioned. First priority is ensuring your safety while you adapt to these changes. The architects have already made one attempt to capture you, and this conclave will undoubtedly make their move as well. As if summoned by her words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the observatory. Monitoring screens activated automatically, showing the perimeter where multiple figures in specialized gear were systematically disabling the outer defensive seals. More architects, Tsukihime identified grimly, recognizing their methodical approach. At least 12 operatives, including what appears to be a field director based on the insignia. They found us already, Tsunade demanded, instantly shifting to combat readiness. They likely tracked Drive, Shimazaki's equipment, Tsukihime suggested, throwing a pointed look at Rei's numerous devices. Some of those instruments emit distinctive dimensional frequencies. Rei had the grace to look embarrassed. Possibly, though they might also have tracked the significant energy discharge from Naruto's transformation. Doesn't matter now, Naruto decided. Golden energy already gathering around his transformed body. What matters is how we respond. Through his enhanced perception, he could sense the architect's approach, their modified chakra networks, creating distinctive signatures that registered as artificial intrusions in the natural dimensional fabric. Unlike the previous attackers, These operatives moved with perfect coordination that suggested some form of shared consciousness. They're networked, he realized, operating as a collective rather than individuals. Second-generation architects, Tsukihime confirmed. More extensively codified than those we encountered earlier. They sacrifice individual autonomy for perfect tactical integration. The implications were disturbing. Humans who had surrendered their individuality to become components in a larger system. Yet Naruto also perceived the thread of choice running through their modifications. Unlike the Root Anbu, who had been conditioned against their will, these operatives had chosen their transformations. Believing sincerely in the necessity of their cause. I don't want to hurt them if possible, he decided. They believe they're protecting reality itself. Our beliefs don't make them any less dangerous, Tsunade pointed out practically. No, but it means they might be open to negotiation if approached correctly, Naruto countered. They're not evil, just committed to an extreme position regarding dimensional stability. The golden energy surrounding him shifted in response to his compassionate intent, becoming less aggressive and more protective in its configuration. With newfound instinct, Naruto extended his awareness beyond the observatory walls, establishing contact with the approaching architects not through conventional communication but direct dimensional resonance. I know why you're here, he projected, his thoughts carrying across the barrier between ordinary space and the modified perceptual field the architects occupied. But capturing me won't achieve your goals. The response came not as words but conceptual packets, compressed bursts of meaning that unpacked into his consciousness. Vessel unstable, convergence dangerous, containment necessary. I agree the convergence requires management, Naruto responded in kind. But fragmentation is not the answer. There's another approach. No alternative. Separation maintains stability. Convergence threatens all realities. Naruto drew upon the genetic memories of Arceus, accessing knowledge of dimensional mechanics far beyond human understanding. He constructed a conceptual model of balanced convergence, limited unification that preserved essential diversity while allowing necessary communication between realities. This is what the original one intended, he projected along with the model. Not rigid separation, not absolute unity, balance. The coordinated approach of the architects faltered as they processed this unexpected communication. Their collective consciousness rippled with uncertainty. Individual components experiencing rare moments of independent thought as they evaluated the conceptual model against their foundational programming. Taking advantage of their hesitation, Naruto expanded his golden energy field to encircle the entire observatory, not as a barrier but as an invitation, a space where dimensional frequencies could be experienced directly rather than theoretically. Enter and see for yourselves, he offered. No deception, no combat, just observation. After a tense moment of collective deliberation, three figures separated from the main group and approached the golden field. They wore more elaborate versions of the standard architect gear, their masks inscribed with complex formulas rather than simple designations. Field directors, authorized to make tactical decisions when unexpected variables emerged. As they passed through the golden energy, Naruto felt their modified consciousnesses connect with his, not a full merging but a controlled interface allowing direct exchange of unfiltered perception. He showed them his transformation from his perspective, the genetic memories clarifying Arceus's original intent. The prophecies describing balanced convergence rather than catastrophic merger. In return, he glimpsed fragments of their motivations, centuries of containing dimensional breaches that threatened entire realities. The gradual thinning of barriers despite their best efforts, the calculated decision that severe measures had become necessary to prevent total collapse. You're not wrong about the danger, Naruto acknowledged. But your solution is incomplete. One of the directors, whose mask bore symbols suggesting seniority, responded with unexpected individuality, alternative approach unproven. Risk calculation exceeds acceptable parameters. Yet you're here speaking with me rather than attempting immediate capture, Naruto pointed out. Some part of you recognizes the possibility that your models are incomplete. The exchange continued for several minutes, complex dimensional concepts flowing between consciousnesses without the limitations of verbal language. Gradually, Naruto NSED: a shift in the director's collective position, not acceptance of his perspective, but acknowledgement that additional data was required before determining appropriate action. Finally, the senior director made a decision that rippled through the collective. Observation protocol initiated. Containment deferred pending further assessment. Vessel will remain under surveillance. Asterisk. The Golden Field receded as Naruto acknowledged their decision. It wasn't victory or defeat but something more valuable, the beginning of dialogue between perspectives that had previously considered each other existential threats. As the architects withdrew to established observation positions around the observatory perimeter, Naruto returned his full attention to the interior, where Tsunade, Tsukihime, and Rei W. watched with varying expressions of amazement. What just happened? Tsunade demanded. Dimensional diplomacy. Naruto answered simply, the golden energy around him gradually subsiding to a subtle aura. They've agreed to observation rather than immediate intervention. You negotiated with the architects. Rei's scientific composure momentarily abandoned her, pure astonishment taking its place. That's unprecedented. Their organizational philosophy explicitly prohibits compromise regarding convergence events. I showed them another perspective, Naruto explained, finding it difficult to translate the multidimensional exchange into ordinary language. Not compromise exactly, but a third option neither side has considered, balanced integration rather than either rigid separation or total unification. Tsukihime studied him with thoughtful intensity. The prophecies mention this possibility, but even my grandmother considered it theoretical at best. No previous dimensional event has achieved balance. They've always tipped toward one extreme or the other. Perhaps that's precisely why the convergence manifested in Naruto, Rei suggested, her scientific mind rapidly incorporating new data. His fundamental nature, his essential Naruto-ness, provides the stabilizing factor previous events lacked. That observation struck closer to truth than perhaps even Rei realized. Through the genetic memories, Naruto understood that his human identity, shaped by struggle, friendship, loss, and perseverance, created a uniquely stable foundation for powers that might otherwise consume their vessel entirely. This temporary truce gives us breathing room, Tsunade noted pragmatically, but doesn't solve our long-term challenges. The conclave will make their move eventually, and I doubt they'll be as open to negotiation. No, Naruto agreed soberly. Their agenda requires my complete transformation into a catalyst for universal merger. That's not negotiable from their perspective. Then we use this time wisely. Tsukihime decided, returning to the ancient tablets. We locate the Trinity orbs, continue stabilizing your transformation, and prepare for the inevitable confrontation with the conclave. As the others began formulating plans, Naruto moved to the observatory's main viewing dome, gazing upward at the late afternoon sky. Through his enhanced perception, he could see beyond the blue expanse into the vastness of space, countless stars, distant galaxies, and the subtle glow of dimensional boundaries stretching between realities. Somewhere out there, Arceus continued its eternal work of creation and maintenance. Somewhere, the remnants of Kaguya's consciousness persisted beyond her apparent defeat. And somewhere, the conclave gathered its forces, preparing to claim the convergence vessel for its absolute agenda. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled on shoulders still adjusting to transformation. Yet beneath that burden, Naruto's essential nature remained unchanged, determined, compassionate, unwilling to accept binary choices when creativity might reveal additional paths. Naruto Uzumaki, he whispered to himself, grounding his expanding consciousness in the identity that had carried him through years of struggle. Son of Minato and Kushina, shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, Jinchuriki of Kurama, and now, Convergence Vessel. Each title represented a facet of his being, none defining him completely yet all contributing to the whole. As golden energy danced across his skin in response to his self-affirmation, Naruto made a silent promise to himself, whatever he was becoming. He would not lose sight of who he had been, and who he had chosen to be. Behind him, Tsukihime approached quietly, her star-filled eyes reflecting understanding beyond her years. The burden of convergence is not meant to be carried alone, she said softly. That's why the bloodlines awakened in you specifically, someone whose greatest strength has always been connection to others. Her words resonated with truth Naruto was only beginning to comprehend. Perhaps that was the key difference between his awakening and the scenarios both the architects and Konkle Avenue had anticipated. His fundamental refusal to walk any path in isolation, his instinctive understanding that true strength emerged from bonds rather than individual power. As the sun began to set outside the observatory, casting golden red light across the monitoring equipment and ancient tablets, Naruto felt the first genuine optimism since his transformation began. The path ahead remained uncertain, filled with cosmic forces and factional agendas beyond ordinary comprehension, but he would navigate it the same way he had faced every previous challenge, one step at a time, supported by those who chose to stand beside him. And somehow, that made even the weight of converging dimensions seem manageable. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. The Cosmic Library. Dawn painted the observatory in shades of amber and rose, light filtering through crystalline panels to cast geometric patterns across ancient instruments. Naruto stood motionless at the center of these intersecting beams, eyes closed in concentration as golden energy flowed around him in controlled currents. 7 spheres of light orbited his body, each a different color, each representing a distinct type energy he was learning to manipulate. Remarkable progress, Ray murmured, monitoring the energy patterns from a respectful distance. Just 48 hours of practice and he's already achieved independent manifestation of 7 distinct frequencies. Tsukihime nodded, her star-filled eyes tracking the orbiting spheres with analytical precision. His intuitive grasp of the fundamental forces exceeds anything recorded in the observatory archives. Even dedicated practitioners typically require years to manifest a single type with such stability. The peaceful observation ended abruptly as one sphere, pulsing with volatile red energy, suddenly expanded, colliding with its neighboring orbs. The careful harmony shattered as conflicting energies discharged in a blinding flash. When vision cleared, Naruto stood amid scattered equipment, his expression a mixture of frustration and determination. Still can't maintain fire-type synchronization with the others, he noted, helping Ray retrieve a monitoring device that had been knocked across the room. Something about its frequency disrupts the harmonic balance. Fire inherently seeks expansion and transformation, Tsukihime explained, unperturbed by the failed attempt. It naturally resists the constraints required for simultaneous manifestation. Naruto wiped sweat from his brow, the exertion of controlling multiple energy types evident despite his enhanced constitution. The last 2 days had been an intense cycle of practice, rest, and more practice, each session pushing the boundaries of his developing abilities while Ray documented every discovery with scientific enthusiasm. The type compatibility matrix suggests fire synchronizes most effectively with lightning and least effectively with water, Ray offered, adjusting her glasses as she consulted her notes. Perhaps focusing on those natural relationships rather than forcing equal harmony across all types. Worth trying, Naruto agreed, rolling his shoulders to release tension. His RMED appearance had stabilized further during these training sessions, golden highlights in his hair becoming more pronounced, the strange mark on his forehead occasionally glowing when he channeled particular energies. His eyes shifting between normal blue and ringed patterns depending on which abilities he accessed. Tsunade entered the main chamber, looking as though she hadn't slept properly in days. As Hokage, she'd been dividing her time between the observatory and Konoha, managing both Naruto's transformation and the political fallout from recent events. The council has called an emergency session regarding the dimensional incident, she announced without preamble. Danzo is pushing for the establishment of a specialized containment unit under his direct authority, ostensibly to protect Konoha from extra-dimensional threats. He means me, Naruto translated flatly. Among other things, Tsunade confirmed, accepting a cup of tea Tsukihime offered. I've temporarily classified all information regarding your transformation as an S-rank secret, but rumors are spreading. The attack on the village wasn't exactly subtle. What's our timeline? Naruto asked, practical cons. RNS pushing aside the frustration of his training difficulties. 3 days before I must present some form of official explanation to the council. Without concrete information, speculation is running. Wild. Everything from foreign invasion to the Nine Tails breaking free. She sipped the tea, momentary appreciation for its quality crossing her features. We need answers before then, specifically guarding these Trinity orbs you mentioned and their potential for stabilizing your abilities. Tsukihime approached a complex instrument resembling an astrolabe crossed with a chakra sensor. I've been cross-referencing my grandmother's research with astronomical alignments corresponding to the last known locations of the orbs. The adamant orb appears to have been entrusted to a sanctuary in the mountains between Earth and Lightning countries. That's contested territory, Tsunade noted grimly. Heavily patrolled by both nations' shinobi, with numerous skirmishes reported in recent months. The exact location is more specific than that, Tsukihime continued, adjusting the instrument's settings. Luminous projections appeared above it, displaying topographical maps overlaid with astronomical calculations. The sanctuary exists in a dimensional fold, a location partially separated from ordinary space-time. My grandmother referred to it as the Cosmic Library. I've heard of it, Ray interjected with barely contained excitement. A repository of knowledge gathered from multiple realities, maintained by guardians who pledged neutrality in all dimensional conflicts. Most scholars consider it mythical. It's quite real, Tsukihime assured her. My clan has maintained communication with its guardians for generations, though contact has become increasingly sporadic in recent decades. Naruto studied the projected location, something in the mountain configuration triggering partial recognition. I've been near there, he realized. During training with Jiraiya, we passed through those mountains. I remember feeling strange there. Like reality was slightly shifted. Your latent sensitivity to dimensional frequencies likely detected the fold's presence without conscious recognition, Ray theorized. Even before your awakening, your bloodlines would have resonated with such phenomena. Can you find the entrance again? Tsunade asked, strategic priorities immediately clear. Naruto considered, focusing on the fragmented memory. Maybe. It would be easier now that I can perceive dimensional frequencies directly. He turned to Tsukihime. Do these guardians know about the convergence? Will they help us? A shadow crossed her star-filled eyes. The guardians serve knowledge itself, not any particular cosmic faction. They may grant access to the library but will expect something in exchange, usually information they don't already possess. I believe we can satisfy that requirement, Ray commented dryly, gesturing toward Naruto's transformed appearance. He first documented case of complete bloodline convergence should qualify as novel information. Decision crystallized with familiar certainty in Naruto's mind. We leave for the mountains tomorrow. The sooner we secure the adamant orb, the better our chances of stabilizing these abilities before they progress further. You won't go alone, Tsunade stated definitively. I'm assigning a security detail. With respect, Lady Hokage. Tsukihime interrupted gently. Conventional shinobi would be more liability than asset in a dimensional fold. They lack the perceptual framework to navigate such spaces safely. She's right, Naruto agreed. I need people who can function in altered dimensional states. That means Tsukihime, Drive, Shimazaki, and myself. A three-person team entering contest. Ed territory to access a mythical library while being hunted by multiple cosmic factions, Tsunade summarized with pointed skepticism. What could possibly go wrong? Four-person team, came a new voice from the observatory entrance. All eyes turned to find Mitsuko Kazuhana leaning against the doorway, her Wind Country diplomatic attire replaced by practical field gear festooned with specialized equipment. She looked travel-worn but alert, dark eyes assessing the room with professional interest. The dimensional stabilization efforts in Shinkai Desert are complete, she reported casually. As if her unexpected appearance required no explanation. The redirected portal has been contained and valuable data collected. My attention is better utilized here now. How did you find this location? Tsukihime demanded, instinctively moving closer to Naruto. The observatory's concealment jutsu, as excellent against conventional detection methods, Mitsuko completed with a diplomatic smile that revealed nothing. Fortunately, I don't rely on conventional methods. The energy signature of Naruto's training exercises created distinctive ripples across dimensional frequencies, subtle, but detectable with specialized equipment. Quote, if you could track him here. Ray began, implications immediately clear. Others will eventually, Mitsuko confirmed. Though my detection systems are several generations beyond what most factions possess. You have time, but not unlimited amounts. Tsunade studied the self-assured woman with undisguised suspicion. You still haven't adequately explained your interest in these events, nor your exceptional knowledge of dimensional mechanics. Mitsuko's expression shifted subtly, professional facade giving way to something more genuine. My interest is preservation of dimensional diversity without rigid separation or forced unification. As for my knowledge, she hesitated, then reached a decision. I was born in a reality adjacent to this one. What you might call a parallel dimension. My people have specialized in interdimensional diplomacy for generations, maintaining balance between worlds that rarely perceive each other's existence. The revelation hung in the air, simultaneously extraordinary and strangely plausible given recent events. Through his enhanced perception, Naruto examined Mitsuko's energy signature more carefully than before. Indeed, subtle differences distinguished her from natives of this dimension, minute variations in how her cells processed energy, how her chakra interacted with local dimensional frequencies. You're telling us you're from another world entirely, Tsunade clarified, skepticism evident. Adjacent reality would be more accurate, Mitsuko corrected. The differences are subtle, history follow. Similar patterns with minor variations, natural laws function almost identically. My world developed interdimensional travel capabilities several centuries ago, allowing limited commerce and communication between realities. Which explains your diplomatic cover, Naruto noted. You're actually a diplomat, just not exclusively for the Land of Wind. Mitsuko inclined her head in acknowledgement. My assignment involves monitoring dimensional stability across multiple realities in this sector. The convergence event, your awakening, represents both unprecedented opportunity and potential catastrophe. And we're just supposed to trust your assessment, Tsunade challenged. Verify everything I say, Mitsuko responded pragmatically. But do so quickly. The cosmic library contains knowledge, crucial for understanding what Naruto is becoming, and for preventing others from exploiting that transformation. Naruto made his decision with characteristic directness. She comes with us. We need her dimensional expertise. Especially if the library exists partially outside normal space-time. And you trust her? Tsunade asked pointedly. Trust is earned, Naruto replied, meeting Mitsuko's gaze directly. But right now, our interests align. She wants dimensional stability. So do I. Something like approval flickered across Mitsuko's expression. Not quite a smile, but recognition of practical wisdom. I'll prepare my equipment for mountain travel. As the others dispersed to make their own preparations, Naruto remained in the central chamber, resuming his practice with the orbiting energy spheres. This time, following Rei's suggestion, he focused on natural-type affinities rather than forcing equal harmony. The red fire sphere pulsed more steadily when paired primarily with a yellow lightning orb. Their frequencies reinforcing rather than disrupting each other. Tsukihime watched from nearby, her quiet presence a stabilizing influence that Naruto had come to appreciate during these intensive training sessions. Unlike Rei's scientific excitement or Mitsuko's pragmatic assessment, Tsukihime approached his transformation with serene understanding that made the extraordinary seem somehow navigable. The first convergence is always the most difficult, she commented, observing his improved control over the energy spheres. First, Naruto questioned, maintaining concentration on the orbiting lights. There have been others, partial convergences, she clarified. Moments throughout history when fragments of the bloodlines briefly aligned. None achieved complete manifestation as yours is doing. But each produced significant effects on their respective eras. Like what? The Sage of Six Paths carried a diluted aspect of Kaguya's convergent blood, enhancing his natural connection to chakra. In another era, a woman named Eyes manifested aspects of Arceus's creation ability, producing what historical records called divine techniques for manipulating elemental forces beyond standard chakra natures. Quote, the revelation that others had experienced fragments of what he now underwent provided unexpected comfort. Naruto wasn't an unprecedented anomaly but the culmination of a process spanning generations, a thought that somewhat lightened the burden of cosmic uniqueness. Did any of them visit this library? He asked, carefully adding a blue water sphere to his orbiting energies. Keeping it at maximum distance from the fire orb. Eyes did, Tsukihime confirmed. My ancestors recorded her journey there in search of understanding her abilities. The library, Guardians granted her access in exchange for documenting her techniques, which were previously unknown to them. And now we're making the same journey, Naruto noted, successfully maintaining 8 distinct energy spheres in complex orbital patterns. History repeating itself. Not repeating, Tsukihime corrected gently. Evolving. Your convergence far exceeds anything previously recorded. You, not following their path, you're creating an entirely new one. The profound implications of her statement hung between them as Naruto continued his practice, golden light reflecting off the observatory's crystalline surfaces in patterns that seemed to echo across dimensions. The journey began at dawn the following day, 4 travelers departing the observatory with equipment specialized for their unique mission. Tsunade had reluctantly returned to Konoha, political necessities demanding her presence as rumors of dimensional incursions spread throughout the village. Naruto wore clothing assigned by Tsukihime from materials found in the observatory, fabrics that adjusted to his fluctuating energy emissions rather than being damaged by them. The ensemble combined practical shinobi functionality with subtle elements reminiscent of both Arceus and Kaguya's distinctive appearances, a high-collared white jacket with golden accents, comfortable dark pants with utility pouches, and a short half-cloak that seemed to shimmer slightly when he moved quickly. The dimensional fold is approximately 3 days' travel at civilian pace, Tsukihime explained as they departed. Less if we utilize shinobi movement techniques. Though that increases our visibility to potential observers. Balance between speed and stealth is essential, Mitsuko added, adjusting equipment on her specialized utility belt. My sensors detect no immediate pursuit, but several factions have increased activity in this region. Rei checked readings on one of her many devices. Fascinating electromagnetic anomalies in the surrounding forest. The ambient energy signature shows evolutionary acceleration approximately 340% above baseline. Following her observation, Naruto noticed what his heightened senses subconsciously registered. The forest surrounding the observatory had changed. Plants grew with unusual vigor and complexity, many sporting variations that shouldn't exist naturally. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors. Trees had developed novel branching patterns, even insects displayed subtle mutations that enhanced their capabilities. It's responding to me, he realized, kneeling to examine. A cluster of flowers whose petals contained perfectly geometric patterns. My presence is affecting the evolutionary development of everything nearby. The original one's creation energy manifesting on a biological level, Tsukihime confirmed, accelerating natural processes rather than replacing them. Is that dangerous? Naruto asked, suddenly concerned about unintended consequences. Not inherently, Rei reassured him. Scanning the unusual flora, the changes appear to follow natural evolutionary pathways, just accelerated and optimized. These organisms aren't becoming monstrous, they becoming better versions of themselves. The observation provided some comfort, though Naruto made a mental note to monitor this effect carefully. Uncontrolled enhancement of natural systems could potentially create ecological imbalances if left unchecked. They traveled through the transformed forest for several hours, maintaining a pace that balanced reasonable progress with conservation of energy. Mitsuko took point, her specialized sensors sweeping for conventional and dimensional threats. Tsukihime walked beside Naruto, occasionally providing guidance when his developing senses detect phenomena he couldn't immediately identify. Rei brought up the rear, constantly documenting environmental changes with her array of scientific instruments. By midday, they had left the immediately transformed region, entering more conventional wilderness. The transition was gradual but noticeable, plants returning to normal coloration and structure, wildlife displaying standard behaviors rather than the heightened intelligence observed near the observatory. The effect has a finite range, Rei noted, recording the transition zone's precise boundaries. Approximately 12 kilometers from the center of your prolonged presence. That's consistent with theoretical models of dimensional influence radiating from a focal point. Good to know I won't accidentally transform the entire continent just by walking around. Naruto commented, relief evident in his tone. The effect will likely expand as your abilities develop further, Mitsuko cautioned pragmatically. One of many reasons the orbs are essential. They help modulate such environmental impacts. They stopped briefly beside a mountain stream for rest and nourishment. While the others consulted maps and instruments, Naruto found himself drawn to the flowing water. Kneeling beside it, he extended his senses beyond ordinary perception, experiencing the stream not just as water but as a complex system of molecular interactions, gravitational influences, and environmental relationships. On impulse, he touched the surface gently, allowing a whisper of golden energy to transfer from his fingertips into the current. The Fa court was subtle but beautiful, the water momentarily glowing with inner light as its molecular structure briefly optimized, becoming perfectly pure. Fish swimming downstream paused in their journey, seemingly responding to the enhanced quality of their environment. Instinctive manipulation of water-type energy, Tsukihime observed, having quietly approached. Your affinity for it appears stronger than for fire. It feels cooperative, Naruto tried to explain, struggling to articulate the sensation. Like it wants to harmonize with my intentions. Different type energies respond to different aspects of consciousness. She explained, kneeling beside him. Water resonates with emotional harmony and intuitive understanding, qualities you naturally possess in abundance. While fire demon, DS assertive will and transformative intent, he concluded, understanding dawning. No wonder I've had trouble stabilizing it. Tsukihime nodded, star-filled eyes reflecting the purified water. The 18 types represent not just elemental forces but philosophical principles, approaches to existence itself. Mastering them requires not just technical skill but understanding their essential nature. The insight shifted Naruto's perspective on his training. He'd been approaching the energies as tools to be controlled rather than principles to be embodied, a fundamental misconception that had limited his progress. We should continue, Mitsuko called from upstream, having completed her security sweep. I've detected increased shinobi activity near the border. Earth country patrols have doubled in the last 24 hours. They resumed their journey with renewed purpose, adjusting course to avoid areas of known patrol activity. By late afternoon, the landscape had transformed from dense forest to increasingly rocky terrain, the foothills of the mountain range they sought. Natural caves and outcroppings provided occasional shelter from the elements and observation. We should establish camp before losing daylight, Mitsuko suggested, indicating a defensible position beneath a rocky overhang. My equipment functions more effectively with proper setup time. The practical recommendation was unanimously accepted. As they established their temporary base, each traveler contributed according to their specialized capabilities. Mitsuko deployed a perimeter of sensors designed to detect both physical intrusion and dimensional fluctuations. Tsukihime established subtle astronomical alignment markers that would help her track their position relative to the hidden sanctuary. I assembled monitoring equipment to continue documenting Naruto's energy emissions and their environmental effects. For his part, Naruto created a small but effective barrier around their camp, not a dramatic golden dome he had manifested during the village attack, but a more subtle field that gently deflected attention rather than physically blocking entry. Anyone approaching would suddenly find their interest drawn elsewhere, their path unconsciously adjusting to avoid the protected area. Impressive application of psychic-type energy, Ray commented, adjusting her glasses as she studied the barrier's properties. You've created a perceptual filter rather than a physical obstruction. Seemed more practical for our purposes, Naruto explained, adding final adjustments to the field. We want to avoid notice, not announce our presence with obvious defenses. Mitsuko gave the barrier a professional assessment. Effective design. Most conventional security measures scream their presence to anyone with appropriate detection capabilities. This is considerably more subtle. The rare compliment from the pragmatic interdimensional diplomat carried weight, suggesting genuine approval rather than mere politeness. Though Mitsuko remained the most reserved of the group, her practical expertise had already proven invaluable during their journey. As evening approached, they gathered around a small, carefully shielded fire. The atmosphere held an unusual quality, 4 individuals united by extraordinary circumstances rather than established bonds, each bringing unique perspectives to their shared mission. Tomorrow we enter the contested zone between Earth and Lightning, Mitsuko noted, consulting a specialized map that displayed patrol patterns based on intelligence she somehow possessed. Numerous skirmishes have been reported, making conventional travel increasingly dangerous. Why has conflict increased in this particular region? Naruto asked, sensing underlying pattern. turns beyond ordinary territorial disputes. The dimensional fold containing the library creates subtle effects detectable even to those without specialized senses, Tsukihime explained. Both nations have reported unusual phenomena: equipment malfunctions, compass distortions, occasional glimpses of structures that shouldn't exist. Neither side understands what they're detecting, but both recognize potential strategic value. Mitsuko added, classic security dilemma. Each nation accelerates its presence because the other does the same. And neither realizes they're experiencing leakage. A dimensional repository of knowledge that predates their civilizations, Ray concluded with a touch of academic irony. Human nature remains remarkably consistent across realities. The observation prompted a rare smile from Mitsuko. Indeed, my people have a saying. The walls between worlds are thin, but the walls between minds are thicker. Your world, Naruto began, curiosity finally overcoming restraint. How different is it from ours? The question seemed to catch Mitsuko off guard, momentarily penetrating her professional detachment. In fundamental ways, not very different. We have nations, conflicts, ordinary people living ordinary lives. But our understanding of dimensional mechanics developed earlier in our history, becoming integrated with our societies rather than remaining esoteric knowledge. And that changed everything, Ray prompted, scientific interest evident. It changed enough, Mitsuko replied thoughtfully. Awareness of parallel realities tends to contextualize local conflicts. It's difficult to maintain belief in absolute cultural or ideological superiority when you can observe thousands of variations on human civilization. Yet your people STILL maintain separation between dimensions, Tsukihime noted. Despite capability for interdimensional travel. Controlled connection, not isolation or merger, Mitsuko clarified. We believe each reality develops unique expressions of possibility that contribute to cosmic diversity. Forced unification would destroy that diversity, while complete separation prevents mutual benefit. Balance, Naruto summarized, recognizing alignment with his developing understanding. Not extremes. Mitsuko studied him with new interest. Exactly, which is why your convergence represents such a critical juncture. Previous vessels invariably lean toward either absolute separation or unity. Your insistence on finding middle paths is unprecedented. The conversation continued as night fully descended, stars appearing in brilliant profusion above their mountain camp. Gradually, the initially cautious interactions warmed into something approaching genuine connection, not yet friendship, perhaps, mutual respect among extraordinary individuals united by circumstance. Ray shared stories of her research before the accident that granted her dimensional sensitivity, describing with animated enthusiasm the experiments that had pushed conventional understanding to its limits. Behind her scientific passion, Naruto sensed deeper motivations, a profound desire to comprehend reality's fundamental nature. Not merely for knowledge itself but as a path toward meaning. Tsukihime spoke of her childhood among the Hyuga clan, always aware of her difference yet finding value in the perspective it provided. Her star-filled eyes had marked her as unusual even among a family defined by distinctive ocular traits, creating isolation that she had transformed into contemplative strength rather than bitterness. Mitsuko revealed little of her personal history but offered fascinating glimpses of her adjacent reality, subtle differences in historical development, technological applications integrated with chakra theory. Societies structured around awareness of the multiverse. Though professionally reserved, her evident appreciation for dimensional diversity revealed genuine philosophical commitment beneath diplomatic training. For his part, Naruto shared experiences from his journey as a shinobi, focusing on lessons learned through struggle rather than achievements gained through power. The author listened with varying expressions as he described his path from isolated child to trusted comrade, each finding resonance with their own experiences of difference and belonging. As the conversation gradually quieted, Naruto took first watch, positioning himself on a rocky outcropping with clear views across the surrounding landscape. His enhanced perception rendered darkness nearly meaningless. He could detect energy signatures, heat differentials, even subtle air current movements that indicated distant activity. Tsukihime joined him shortly, settling beside him with quiet grace. For several minutes, they observed the star-filled sky together in comfortable silence. Your control is improving rapidly, she eventually noted, observing the subtle golden energy that occasionally flicker across his skin when he extended his senses. You're adapting to the convergence faster than the prophecies anticipated. I've had practice adjusting to unexpected power, Naruto replied, thinking of his journey with the Nine Tails chakra. Though this is definitely more complex. How does the Nine Tails respond to these changes? She asked, genuine concern in her voice. Naruto turned his awareness inward, connecting with Kurama's consciousness. The great fox had been uncharacteristically contemplative since the transformation began, observing the changes with ancient wisdom rarely revealed. He's fascinated, Naruto answered truthfully. These energies predate even the sage of six paths who created the tailed beasts. Kurama remembers fragments from when Kaguya possessed the Ten Tails power. But Arceus is entirely new to his experience. The convergence affects him as well, Tsukihime observed. Your connection creates a pathway for his evolution alongside your own. Evolution or transcendence? Naruto questioned softly. Sometimes I wonder if these changes will eventually transform me into something that isn't human anymore. If I'll lose everything that makes me, me. The vulnerability in his admission hung between them, a rare expression of the fear underlying his determined exterior. Tsukihime considered her response carefully, star-filled eyes reflecting celestial light. The vessels who lost themselves to convergence were those who embraced power while rejecting connection, she finally answered. Your essence, what makes you uniquely Naruto, has always been defined by bonds rather than abilities. That creates a foundation the cosmic energies cannot easily erode. Her words carried the weight of both historical knowledge and personal observation. Naruto found unexpected comfort in them. A perspective that framed his transformation not as loss of humanity but expansion of connection. Thank you, he said simply, for seeing me beneath all this. He gestured to the occasional golden light that danced across his transformed appearance. Tsukihime's expression softened into a smile that transformed her serene countenance. I've always seen you, Naruto. Even before the convergence made you shine like a newborn star. The admission carried layers of meaning that neither fully addressed, a foundation for something deeper than their current circumstances allowed time to explore. Instead, they returned to comfortable silence, watching over their companions while night deepened around them. Dawn arrived with oppressive cloud cover that transformed the mountainous landscape into a realm of shadow and mist. They broke camp efficiently, leaving no trace of their presence as they continued toward increasingly rugged terrain. The dimensional fold's influence intensifies ahead, Mitsuko reported, consulting readings from her specialized equipment. Electromagnetic anomalies, gravitational fluctuations, occasional temporal desynchronization. Temporal what now? Naruto questioned, adjusting his pack as they prepared to navigate a particularly steep section. Time flows differently near dimensional boundaries, Ray explained enthusiastically. Variations typically remain minimal, seconds or minutes rather than years, but even slight desynchronization can disorient those unprepared for the experience. Focus on maintaining internal temporal reference, Tsukihime advised practically. Your convergent bloodlines provide natural resistance to such effects, but conscious awareness helps stabilize perception. The advice proved valuable as they ascended higher into the mountains. Occasionally, Naruto experienced strange moments when his companions' movements seemed to stutter or flow too smoothly, as if time itself became inconsistent around them. By concentrating on his internal rhythms, heartbeat, breath, the steady pulse of chakra through his network, he managed to navigate these anomalies without the disorientation that might otherwise occur. By mid-morning, they had entered a region where reality itself seemed increasingly malleable. Stone formations displayed impossible geometries, vegetation grew in patterns that defied natural development. And atmospheric conditions shifted unpredictably between different microclimates. We're approaching the fold's outer boundary, Tsukihime confirmed, consulting astronomical markers visible only to her specialized perception. The transition zone between normal space-time and the library's dimensional pocket. I'm detecting increased chakra signatures approximately 2 kilometers northwest. Mitsuko warned, her sensors indicating potential threat. Earth Country Patrol, based on movement patterns. 12 individuals, likely Jonin level. Can we avoid them? Naruto asked, already calculating potential routes. Uncertain. Their patrol route intersects our optimal path to the fold entrance. Deviation would cost time and potentially expose us to additional patrols from Lightning Country in the Eastern Quadrant. The tactical situation demanded immediate decision. Naruto considered options with practiced efficiency, drawing on years of mission experience. NCE enhanced by his new perceptual capabilities. We proceed as planned but adjust our dimensional resonance, he decided. I can create a field that partially shifts us toward the library's frequency without fully entering the fold. We'll be less visible to conventional perception while maintaining our course. Theoretically sound, Ray commented, impressed by the intuitive application of dimensional mechanics. Though maintaining consistent resonance across 4 individuals with different energy signatures presents significant challenges. I can establish the base frequency if you can help calibrate for individual variations. Naruto proposed, already gathering golden energy for the technique. Their seamless transition to cooperative problem-solving reflected growing team cohesion. Ray immediately began calculating optimal frequency adjustments for each team member based on their unique energy signatures. Tsukihime provided insights from historical records of similar techniques. Mitsuko contributed practical knowledge from her interdimensional experience. Within minutes, Naruto had created a subtle field around their group that shifted their dimensional resonance just anew. To reduce conventional detectability without fully transitioning to the fold's frequency. The effect was visually minimal, a slight shimmer in the air around them, a subtle transparency to their forms, but functionally significant. Elegant solution, Mitsuko approved, monitoring the field's stability with her instruments. We register as environmental anomalies rather than human signatures to standard detection methods. They continued through increasingly strange terrain, the world around them displaying more pronounced signs of dimensional bleeding. Gravity occasionally shifted, allowing momentary near weightlessness before returning to normal. Light refracted through non-existent prisms, casting rainbow patterns across stone surfaces. Sounds echoed with harmonic overtones that suggested communication from adjacent realities. Navigating this strange landscape required continuous adaptation, each team member contributing specialized awareness to identify potential dangers. Ray's scientific knowledge helped interpret unusual phenomena. Tsukihime's celestial orientation maintained their course through shifting geography. Mitsuko's practical experience with dimensional travel anticipated transition effects. And Naruto's developing cosmic senses detected patterns connecting seemingly random anomalies. By early afternoon, they reached a vertical rock face that appeared ordinary. Why except for subtle irregularities in its geometric structure? To conventional perception, it would seem like natural mountain formation, perhaps unusually smooth in sections but otherwise unremarkable. This is it, Tsukihime confirmed. Star-filled eyes perceiving what others couldn't. The primary entrance to the fold containing the cosmic library. Naruto extended his senses, perceiving multi-PLE dimensional frequencies converging at this location. The rock face existed simultaneously in several realities, serving as junction point between overlapping planes of existence. I see the frequency pattern, he acknowledged. Observing intricate energy flows invisible to ordinary vision. But not the mechanism for transition. The entrance responds to specific vibrational keys, Tsukihime explained. Approaching the seemingly solid rock. Traditionally, representatives of recognized dimensional factions possessed unique keys granted by the library guardians. My people maintained diplomatic access for several centuries, Mitsuko added, producing a small crystal from a specialized compartment in her equipment. This resonator should still function if the library's protocols remain unchanged. She pressed the crystal against a specific point on the rock face, unremarkable to ordinary perception but precisely aligned with converging dimensional frequencies. The crystal emitted a tone too complex for simple description, not merely sound but vibrational pattern that rippled across multiple energy spectrums simultaneously. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then reality itself seemed to acknowledge the signal. The seemingly solid rock rippled like water disturbed by a stone, its surface becoming momentarily transparent to reveal glimpses of impossible architecture beyond, soaring spires, crystalline walkways. Structures that existed in more dimensions than human senses could comprehend. Signal acknowledged but access denied, Mitsuko translated, reading subtle variations in the dimensional response. The library has changed its security protocols since my people's last recorded visit. Disappointment threatened their mission's momentum, but Naruto approached the problem with characteristic determination. Closing his eyes, he extended his awareness not just to the visible entrance but to the dimensional frequencies surrounding it, seeking patterns that might suggest alternative access methods. What he discovered surprised him. The entrance wasn't simply scanning for recognized keys but actively evaluating the vibrational signatures of those seeking entry. It wasn't a lock and key system but a sophisticated consciousness analyzing intent and nature. It's alive, he realized, opening his eyes. Not biologically, but consciously. The entrance itself evaluates visitors based on their essential nature, not just credentials. That matches ancient descriptions, Tsukihime confirmed. The library was said to judge worthiness rather than merely verifying identity. But the evaluation criteria were never clearly documented. Naruto approached the rippling surface, golden energy naturally gathering around his transformed form. I think I understand what it wants. Without further explanation, he placed his palm directly against the dimensional boundary. Rather than presenting credentials or demanding entry, he simply opened his awareness fully, allowing the conscious entrance to perceive him completely, without deception or reservation. I come seeking understanding, not control, he projected through the connection. Knowledge to balance power, wisdom to guide transformation. The response came not as words but as sensation, curiosity, evaluation, ancient protocols activating in response to unprecedented energy patterns. The dimensional bow. Nadari recognized the convergent bloodlines, comparing Naruto's unique signature against records spanning countless realities and eons. After what seemed like eternal moments of communion, the rock face dissolved completely, revealing a crystalline archway leading into a space that defied conventional architectural understanding. The library had granted access not based on recognized authority but on direct evaluation of Naruto's essential nature. Impressive, Mitsuko murmured, genuine respect evident in her tone. Most dimensional barriers require specific credentials regardless of intent. This one responded to authentic presence instead. The library predates most factional divisions, Tsukihime explained, approaching the archway with reverent steps. Its founding principle was preservation of knowledge across all dimensional perspectives, without ideological filtration. They passed through the archway in single file, each experiencing momentary disorientation as their perceptual framework adjusted to the fold's unique properties. Inside, reality operated according to different principles. Gravity varied depending on location, light behaved as both particle and wave simultaneously. Sound carried emotional content alongside auditory information. But most overwhelming was the library itself, a structure that couldn't properly be called a building, as it lacked clear boundaries between interior and exterior space. Instead, knowledge itself had been given architectural form, information organized into physical structures that extended in directions human language struggled to describe. Crystalline spires contained complete historical records of civilizations long vanished from conventional reality. Spiraling walkways connected repositories of scientific principles discovered and forgotten across countless dimensions. Floating platforms housed artistic creations from realities operating under entirely different physical laws. Magnificent, Ray breathed, Academy. See composure momentarily abandoned in pure wonder. The theoretical density of information here exceeds anything in recorded history. Focus, Mitsuko reminded practically, though her own expression revealed barely concealed amazement. We have specific objectives requiring efficient completion before. Her pragmatic assessment was interrupted by sudden movement across a crystalline bridge CTing two major information repositories. A figure approached with deliberate grace, humanoid but clearly not entirely human, its form incorporating elements that suggested partial transcendence beyond ordinary physical limitations. As it drew closer, features became more distinct, female in presentation, with pale skin that occasionally revealed glimpses of crystalline structure beneath, hair that shifted colors depending on viewing angle, and most strikingly, eyes containing mirrored surfaces that reflected observers rather than revealing inner thoughts. Visitors, the being acknowledged, the OICE resonating with harmonics that carried secondary meanings beneath primary communication. Unexpected yet anticipated, paradoxical arrival pattern consistent with convergence manifestation. We seek knowledge regarding the Trinity orbs, Tsukihime stated formally, evidently familiar with appropriate protocol. Specifically the adamant orb believed to be housed within this sanctuary. The GU. Ardian's mirrored eyes focused on Naruto, reflective surfaces showing his transformed appearance with perfect clarity. Convergent vessel manifested ahead of calculated probability timeline. Fascinating deviation. You know about the convergence, Naruto observed, neither question nor accusation but simple recognition. The library contains all accessible knowledge across dimensional boundaries, the Guardian confirmed. Including prophetic calculations regarding bloodline recombination potential. Your specific manifestation pattern remains inadequately documented, however. That sounds like an information exchange opportunity. Ray suggested eagerly, scientific instincts immediately recognizing the implied transaction. The Guardian's expression shifted subtly, something resembling a P-Proval crossing features designed for neutrality. Correct assessment. The Cosmic Library operates on principles of information reciprocity. Access to specialized knowledge requires contribution of equivalent value. I offer direct documentation of convergent bloodline manifestation, Naruto proposed, understanding the exchange dynamics intuitively. My transformation represents novel informati. Not currently contained in your archives. Acceptable preliminary offering, the Guardian acknowledged. Follow for initial assessment and registration procedures. The being turned with fluid grace, leading them deeper into the impossible architecture of the library. As they proceeded, Naruto noticed subtle changes in the environment's response to their presence. Information structures Orion. Ting toward them like flowers tracking sunlight, crystalline repositories emitting harmonics that suggested recognition of rare energy patterns. The library itself is responding to you, Tsukihime noted quietly. It recognizes the convergent bloodlines as significant to its foundational purpose. Which is? Naruto asked, sensing deeper patterns beneath the surface function of knowledge preservation. Balance. Mitsuko answered unexpectedly. According to interdimensional historical records, the library was established during the First Dimensional War as neutral territory where knowledge from all perspectives could be preserved regardless of which faction achieved dominance. Their guide led them to a circular chamber whose walls consisted entirely of crystalline panels displaying mathematical equations of extraordinary complexity, dimensional coordinates, vibrational frequencies, probability calculations spanning multiple realities. Convergence Assessment Chamber, the Guardian explained, gesturing toward a raised platform at the center. Designed for comprehensive analysis of significant dimensional phenomena. Vessel will stand central for optimal data collection. Though phrased as explanation, the implicit instruction was clear. Naruto stepped onto the platform, immediately feeling the chamber's systematic analysis, not invasive but thorough, examining his transformed nature across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Remarkable integrity coefficients, the Guardian observed, interfacing directly with the chamber's analytical systems. Previous party, AL convergences demonstrated structural instability across primary harmonic frequencies. Your integration pattern maintains coherence despite unprecedented power density. Because he's not just a vessel but a person. Tsukihime stated with quiet conviction. His identity provides foundational stability that previous convergences lacked. The Guardian's mirrored eyes reflected momentary recalibration of analytical parameters. Subjective identity persistence as stability factor, unexpected variable. Records updated accordingly. Information appeared across the crystalline walls, detailed analyses of Naruto's transformation displayed in formats ranging from conventional medical diagnostics to higher dimensional mathematical models beyond ordinary comprehension. The chamber was creating the most comprehensive documentation of convergent bloodlines ever recorded. Preliminary exchange requirements satisfied, the Guardian announced as the assessment completed. Reciprocal access granted to General Archives regarding Trinity Orb's historical documentation. General Archives. Ray questioned, immediately noting the qualification. We need specific information about the Adamant Orb's current location and functionality. Restricted information requires proportional exchange, the Guardian explained without emotion. Location coordinates and operational parameters of Trinity Orb. BS classified as critical dimensional security knowledge. Additional contribution necessary for access. The negotiating position was clear. They had earned basic historical information but not the specific details most crucial to their mission. Naruto stepped from the platform, considering appropriate counter-offer. What classification of information would be considered proportional? He asked practically. Functional demonstration of convergent abilities constitutes appropriate exchange value, the Guardian responded. Theoretical understanding exists within archives, but observational data of actual implementation remains inadequate. Naruto glanced at his companions, receiving subtle nods of agreement. Acceptable terms. I'll demonstrate currently developed abilities in exchange for our complete information regarding the adamant orb. Proceed when prepared, the Guardian instructed, the chamber reconfiguring to optimize observational parameters. Drawing upon his intensive training of recent days, Naruto manifested multiple type energies simultaneously, golden light forming the foundation from which distinct elemental forces emerged in controlled patterns. Water spiraled around fire without extinguishing it. Earth supported air currents that carried electrical discharges, metallic constructs channeled psychic impressions. The demonstration wasn't merely technical display, but coherent system, each element interacting with others according to natural affinities while maintaining individual integrity. Unlike his earlier training attempts, Naruto approached the energies no as tools to be controlled but as principles to be embodied, allowing his consciousness to resonate with each type's essential nature. Unprecedented harmonization efficiency, the Guardian noted, he chamber recording every aspect of the demonstration. Previous theoretical models calculated mutual exclusivity between certain frequency patterns. Your implementation achieves compatibility through novel resonance structures. He's not forcing harmony but finding natural connections between apparently opposing forces, Tsukihime explained, her star-filled eyes tracking energy patterns with analytical precision. A philosophical approach as much as technical achievement. The demonstration continued for several minutes, Naruto exploring increasingly complex interactions between type energies. The chamber's crystalline walls displayed real-time analysis, documenting principles that expanded existing understanding of dimensional mechanics. Sufficient demonstration recorded, the Guardian eventually announced. Exchange requirements fulfilled, restricted information access granted. The chamber's displays shifted, now showing detailed information about the Trinity orbs, their creation, historical functions, and most crucially, current status. Rei immediately began documenting everything, her scientific training perfectly suited for rapid information assimilation. The adamant orb stabilizes space-time manipulation aspects of convergent abilities, she summarized, correlating new information with existing knowledge. It was entrusted to the library's guardians during the Econ dimensional realignment approximately 1,700 years ago. Current location, Mitsuko prompted practically. The Guardian gestured toward a specific crystalline panel displaying complex coordinate systems. The adamant orb resides within the library's central repository, Sector 17, Dimensional Frequency DELTA-3. You have it here, Naruto asked, surprised by the relatively straightforward answer after such intensive negotiation. Correct. The library maintains custodianship of the adamant orb as neutral dimensional entity. Neither architects nor conclave may claim exclusive access without disrupting foundational balance. And would this custodianship extend to releasing the orb to the convergent vessel itself? Tsukihime asked carefully, the crucial question underlying their entire journey. The Guardian's mirrored eyes reflected momentary processing of unprecedented inquiry. No historical precedent exists for direct transfer to convergent vessel. Established protocols require retriangulation of all three orbs before release of any individual component. Meaning we need to locate the other two orbs before you'll release this one, Naruto translated, momentary frustration crossing his features. Not precisely, the Guardian clarified, alternative provision exists within founding protocols. Trial of worthy intent permits provisional access under specific conditions. What conditions? Mitsuko asked. Diplomatic training immediately focused on negotiation parameters. The vessel must demonstrate not merely power but wisdom in its application. Theoretical understanding must be matched by ethical implementation. Balance must be preserved rather than dominated. A test, Naruto summarized, understanding flowing from genetic memories. Arceus established CML, AR trials for those seeking specific powers, challenges designed to verify character rather than merely capability. Correct assessment, the Guardian confirmed. The trial evaluates essence rather than appearance. Intention rather than demonstration. Before further discussion could occur, alarm harmonics suddenly resonated throughout the library, not conventional sound but vibrational patterns. That indicated serious disruption to dimensional stability. The Guardian's crystalline substructure became momentarily visible beneath humanoid appearance, stress fractures appearing as response to whatever triggered the alert. Perimeter breach detected, the being announced, all negotiation protocols immediately suspended. Unauthorized dimensional incursion in progress. Multiple hostile entities penetrating outer defensive layers. Mitsuko activated her specialized sensors, expression tightening at the readings. Conclave signatures. Advanced infiltration team with signature suppression technology. They must have tracked our dimensional resonance through the entrance. The library's automatic defenses should have prevented direct incursion, the Guardian stated, interfacing with security systems. Analysis indicates systematic compromise of outer frequency barriers over extended timeframe. Preparation rather than opportunistic breach. They've been planning this, Tsukihime realized, connecting implications. Using our arrival as opportunity to execute pre-established infiltration. Primary objective, Naruto asked the Guardian, tactical assessment immediately prioritizing defense parameters. Unknown. Historical patterns suggest multiple possibilities. Knowledge acquisition, dimensional anchor establishment, or the adamant orb, Naruto completed grimly. They want to prevent me from obtaining it, while capturing you in the process, Mitsuko added pragmatically. A convergent vessel under conclave control would significantly advance their unification agenda. Security displays throughout the chamber activated, showing multiple infiltration points across the library's dimensional structure. Humanoid figures in specialized environmental suits moved WITH coordinated precision through crystalline corridors, neutralizing automated defense systems with practiced efficiency. 12 infiltrators, Mitsuko counted, analyzing tactical patterns. Elite, operational unit based on movement discipline and equipment configuration. The library's Guardian staff is primarily scholarly rather than defensive, the crystalline being informed them. Limited, combat capability against specialized infiltration team. Then we'll help defend it, Naruto decided instantly. The library represents neutral knowledge preservation, exactly the balanced approach being threatened by factional extremism. Quote, his companions nodded agreement without hesitation, team cohesion strengthening in response to clear threat. Each immediately prepared according to their spec. Idealized capabilities. Mitsuko activating combat-oriented equipment previously kept in standby mode, Tsukihime accessing celestial techniques developed specifically for dimensional conflict, reconfig. Erring scientific instruments for tactical application rather than mere observation. Optimal defense requires distributed response team, the Guardian advised, security displays indicating infiltrator progress through multiple sectors. Centralized resistance permits flanking maneuvers against vulnerable knowledge repositories. We'll split into paired teams, Naruto decided after quick tactical assessment. Dr. Shimazaki with Mitsuko covering the western approach, Tsukihime with me intercepting the main infiltration group. Guardian, can you coordinate communication between teams? Affirmative. The library's harmonic systems permit instantaneous information transfer across all sectors. They separated with practiced efficiency, moving through the impossible architecture with purpose. Guided by the Guardian's navigational assistance, Naruto and Tsukihime took a crystalline pathway that curved through conceptual space, bypassing ordinary distance limitations to intercept the primary conclave team. 8 infiltrators approaching central repository, the Guardian's voice resonated through dimensional harmonics rather than conventional sound. Tactical analysis suggests primary objective is indeed the adamant orb. Expected timeline to intercept, Naruto asked, adapting his movement to the library's unusual physical properties. 3 minutes at current progression rates. Infiltrators employing dimensional shortcuts similar to your pathway. As they approached the interception point, Naruto accessed his developing cosmic senses to evaluate the opposition. Unlike the architects encountered previously, these conclave operatives radiated a distinctive energy signature suggesting fundamentally different philosophical approach to dimensional manipulation, not separation and containment but merging and homogenization. Their harmony types, he realized, recognizing the pattern from genetic memory. They don't just cross dimensional boundaries, they deliberately weaken them. forcing realities to blend together. The Conclave believes all separation is illusion, Tsukihime confirmed, star-filled eyes narrowed in concentration. Their ultimate goal is collapsing all diversity into single unified reality under centralized consciousness. They reached a junction between major information repositories, a vast open space where multiple dimensional pathways converge around a central crystalline platform. Floating above this platform, suspended in what appeared to be structured light rather than physical containment, rested a perfectly spherical orb of diamond D-like material that radiated complex dimensional frequencies. The adamant orb, Tsukihime identified unnecessarily, its distinctive energy signature unmistakable to enhanced perception. Before they could approach, the space distorted as 8 figures emerged simultaneously from different entry points, conclave infiltrators in specialized suits designed for interdimensional operation. Unlike the architect's clinical precision, these operatives moved with fluid grace suggesting altered perception of spatial limitations. Their leader stepped forward, environmental helmet retracting to reveal features that blended aspects of multiple species, not quite human, not quite other, but deliberately hybridized across dimensional boundaries. When they spoke, their voice carried harmonic overtones Augusting simultaneous translation across multiple languages. Convergence vessel, they acknowledged Naruto directly. Your arrival was anticipated, though your specific manifestation pattern remains intriguing. I am Harmonizer Ekaya, representing the Dimensional Conclave's Unification Division. I know why you're here, Naruto responded, golden energy gathering around his form not as aggressive display but preparatory defense. But the adamant orb isn't yours to take, nor yours to claim through false neutrality, Ekaya countered smoothly. The library's supposed impartiality masks implicit support for separation ideology. True knowledge requires dissolution of artificial boundaries between information systems, including consent. Tsukihime challenged, celestial energy manifests. Ting around her hands as star-filled eyes narrowed. Forced unification destroys the very diversity that makes knowledge meaningful. Akaja's hybridized features displayed something resembling pity, a perspective limited by dimensional habituation. Separation is illusion created by incomplete perception. Unity is fundamental reality beneath apparent diversity. Philosophical debate can wait, Naruto interjected practically. Your infiltration violates the library's neutrality. Withdraw your operatives, and we can discuss theoretical perspectives without conflict. Admirable diplomatic attempt, Ekaya acknowledged with apparent sincerity. But practical necessities supersede conversational preferences. The orb and vessel must be secured before architect intervention. Resistance is therefore suboptimal. With that final assessment, the conclave operatives attacked in perfect coordination, not as individuals but as aspects of unified tactical entity. Their movements flowed with disturbing synchronization, each action complementing others without apparent communication. Naruto and Tsukihime responded with practiced partnership developed through intensive training sessions. Go! Elden energy expanded around them both as Naruto created a localized field harmonized to Tsukihime's celestial techniques. Within this shared space, their movements achieved complementary flow that matched the conclave's coordination while maintaining individual autonomy. The battle unfolded across multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. Physical combat blended with energy manipulation as both sides leveraged the library's unique properties. Conclave operatives attempted to destabilize local dimensional boundaries, creating ripple effects that distorted space-time around their opponents. Naruto countered by establishing stabilization fields that preserved normal physical laws within defined parameters. Tsukihime demonstrated combat capabilities far beyond what her Hyuga upbringing suggested, celestial techniques that affected dimensional resonance directly, disrupting the conclave's harmony-based advantages. Her star-filled eyes perceived vulnerabilities in their specialized equipment, targeting connection points between dimensional frequency modulators. Through their harmonic connection, Naruto received updates on the second team's progress. Mitsuko and Rei had success. FULLY intercepted the smaller conclave group attempting to access secondary systems. The interdimensional diplomat's combat expertise combined with the scientist's technical knowledge had neutralized that threat efficiently, allowing them to secure a critical information junction. 2 minutes until reinforcement arrival, Mitsuko's report came through dimensional harmonics. Maintain current position if tactically viable. The primary battle intensified as Ekaya recognized their timeline compression. The harmonizer activated specialized equipment that began generating resonance fields design D to accelerate dimensional bleeding, deliberately weakening the library's structural integrity to force spontaneous reality merger. They're attempting systematic collapse. The Guardians alarmed communication resonated throughout the chamber. If the dimensional boundaries destabilize completely, the entire library will merge with adjacent realities. Understanding the catastrophic implications, Naruto shifted tactical approach from containment to active neutralization. Drawing upon multiple type energies simultaneously, he created counter-resonance fields specifically calibrated to Akage's equipment frequency. Tsukihime. Disruption pattern celestial -7. He called, their training sessions having established shared tactical terminology. She immediately responded, star-filled eyes Fok, using intently as she generated specific energy patterns that complemented his counter-resonance field. Together, their combined technique created a cascading disruption effect that targeted the conclave's specialized equipment rather than the operatives themselves. Ekaya recognized the threat too late. The counter-resonance wave crashed through their carefully established fields, causing catastrophic feedback loops in dimensional manipulation devices. Specialized suits malfunctioned, harmonic coordination disrupted as individual operatives suddenly found themselves operating on slightly different dimensional frequencies. Clever application, Ekaya acknowledged, genuine appreciation evident despite tactical disadvantage. Most opponents attempt direct neutralization rather than harmonic disruption. Your understanding exceeds predicted parameters. Taking advantage of the momentary disruption, Naruto expanded his golden energy field to encompass the entire chamber, establishing dimensional stabilization that countered the weakening boundaries. Unlike his previous barriers, this technique didn't separate spaces but reinforced their natural integrity, preventing forced merger while maintaining appropriate connection. The conclave believes unity requires homogenization, he stated, addressing Ekaya directly while maintaining the stabilization field. But true harmony preserves distinctive elements while establishing meaningful relationship. Diversity within unity, not despite it. The philosophical statement carried practical implementation through his technique, a direct counter to the conclave's fundamental approach that demonstrated alternative methodology rather than merely opposing their efforts. Akage's expression shifted, hybrid features registering something beyond tactical assessment, genuine reconsideration of established parameters. Before this could develop further, Mitsuko and Rei arrived with library guardians, surrounding the conclave operatives with overwhelming force distribution. Your infiltration has failed, Mitsuko stated with diplomatic precision. The library remains neutral ground under established multiversal conventions. Withdrawal WITH your operational team remains viable option. The harmonizer assessed their situation with calculating efficiency. Tactical repositioning appears optimal under current constraints. This encounter has provided valuable observational data regardless of primary objective completion status. With practiced coordination, the conclave operatives activated emergency extraction protocols, specialized devices generating localized dimensional gateways that would return them to their origin point. Before stepping through, Ekaya addressed Naruto directly one final time. Your approach merits further analysis, convergence vessel. Conventional models failed to predict your specific integration pattern. Perhaps, recalibration of unification methodology deserves consideration. The acknowledgement of potential philosophical adjustment represented significant deviation from standard conclave doctrine, suggesting Naruto's demonstration had impacted their previously rigid perspective. As the infiltrators disappeared through their extraction portals, the immediate crisis resolved. The library's guardians immediately began repairing dimensional boundaries weakened during the confrontation. Mitsuko's equipment verified no remaining conclave presence within the sanctuary. That was unexpectedly effective, Rei noted, scientific curiosity evident despite combat fatigue. Their retreat included philosophical reassessment rather than merely tactical withdrawal. Actions demonstrating philosophical alternatives often prove more persuasive than verbal arguments alone, the primary guardian observed. Crystalline structure fully stabilized as emergency conditions subsided. The vessel's implementation of balanced dimensional approach provided experiential evidence contradicting conclave fundamental assumptions. Naruto allowed the golden energy field to dissipate gradually, ensuring dimensional stability returned to normal parameters before releasing his technique. The effort had required significant concentration but felt more natural than previous applications, his growing understanding of type energies translating into increasingly intuitive control. The library recog. Niz's exceptional service in defense of knowledge preservation, the Guardian announced formally. Furthermore, demonstration of balanced dimensional approach during combat operations fulfills trial of worthy intent parameters. Access to the adamant orb granted without additional qualification requirements. The crystalline platform at the chamber's center activated, causing the suspended orb to descend within reach. Up close, its complexity became more apparent. Not simply diamond-like material but crystallized space-time itself, dimensional boundaries preserved in physical form through processes beyond conventional comprehension. The orb responds to convergent bloodline resonance, Tsukihime explained as Naruto approached it cautiously. It will attune to your specific frequency when accepted. Reaching out with both physical hand and dimensional awareness, Naruto established contact with the ancient artifact. Immediately, knowledge flooded his consciousness, not mere information direct understanding of space-time manipulation principles. The orb's crystalline structure resonated with his transformed nature, adapting to his unique convergent pattern. It's teaching me, he realized. Golden energy harmonizing with the orb's dimensional frequencies. Not controlling or enhancing but providing framework for abilities that already exist within the bloodlines. The Nidhi orbs were created as guidance systems rather than power sources, the Guardian confirmed. They provide structural parameters for abilities that would otherwise develop chaotically. As the attunement completed, the orb's physical form shifted subtly, external appearance remaining unchanged while internal resonance patterns synchronized perfectly with Naruto's unique energy signature. When he finally lifted it from the platform, it felt neither heavy nor light but somehow properly proportioned to his dimensional perception. The attunement is complete, Tsukihime observed, star-filled EY's perceiving changes invisible to ordinary vision. The adamant orb now functions as primary stabilizer for space-time manipulation aspects of your convergent abilities. 1 down, 2 to go, Naruto noted practically. Carefully securing the orb in a specialized container Tsukihime had prepared. Where are the others? The lustrous orb was entrusted to specialized guardians in what your dimension designates water country. The library guardian provided, accessing ancient records. The Gricious orb's location remains partially obscured even within our archives, intentional security measure. Implemented during the third dimensional realignment. We'll find them, Naruto stated with quiet determination. Establishing proper balance seems increasingly urgent given factional activities. The library concurs with this assessment, the Guardian acknowledged. Dimensional stability measurements indicate accelerating deterioration across multiple boundary zones. Convergent intervention I prove necessary within abbreviated timeline. This concerning confirmation hung between them as they prepared to depart the sanctuary. The library had provided crucial knowledge in the first orb, but their journey had only begun. 2 more artifacts remained to be located and secured before Naruto's convergent abilities could achieve proper balance. As they retraced their path toward the entrance archway, the Guardian accompanied them, providing final information regarding safe passage back to conventional reality. Dimensional transition may cause temporary perceptual disorientation, the being advised. The fold's unique properties differ significantly from standard space-time parameters. We'll manage, Naruto assured, the adamant orb's stabilizing influence already improving his dimensional navigation capabilities. Thank you for your assistance and for maintaining this repository of knowledge. The Guardian's mirrored eyes reflected something resembling appreciation, an unusual emotional display from a being designed for neutrality. The library exists to preserve wisdom across all perspectives. Your approach to convergence suggests potential for new understanding beyond traditional factional divisions. That's the intent, Naruto acknowledged, recognizing the profound responsibility underlying their mission. Balance rather than dominance, diversity within unity. They passed through the entrance archway, experiencing momentary transitional dissonance before reality resolved into the familiar mountainous landscape. The dimensional fold closed behind them, he rock face solidifying to once again conceal the extraordinary sanctuary from conventional perception. Temporal desynchronization approximately 17 hours, Mitsuko reported, consulting specialized equipment. Time flowed differently within the fold than in primary reality. Meaning? Naruto questioned, already suspecting the answer. We spent approximately 30 hours inside the library from our perspective, but nearly 2 days have passed in the outside world. The implications were immediately concerning. Tsunade had expected their return within a specific timeframe, and their extended absence might trigger search parties or other complications. We need to return to Konoha efficiently, Naruto decided, adjusting plans based on new temporal constraints. Lady Tsunade faces the council tomorrow according to this timeline. As they oriented themselves for the return journey, Naruto felt the adamant orb's influence stabilizing his dimensional perception. Concepts that previously seemed abstract became increasingly comprehensible. The relationship between space and time, the structured nature of dimensional boundaries, the principles governing transition between realities. Most significantly, he understood that the orb wasn't merely stabilizing his abilities but helping integrate them with his essential nature. Unlike tools that extended capability beyond natural parameters, the Trinity orbs were designed to ensure convergent powers developed in harmony with the vessel's core identity. The journey back through the contested mountains proceeded with greater efficiency than their initial approach. Naruto's enhanced dimensional navigation allowed them to identify optimal paths that minimized both travel time and detection risk. Tsukihime's celestial orientat ion maintained their course even through areas of electromagnetic distortion. Mitsuko's tactical experience anticipated and avoided potential security patrols. Rei's scientific knowledge helped interpret environmental anomalies they encountered along the way. Their teamwork had evolved significantly during the library expedition, from collection of specialists with shared objective to cohesive unit leveraging complementary capabilities. Though formally temporary, their collaboration had developed functional patterns that maximized individual strengths while compensating for respective limitations. By nightfall, they had navigated beyond the most dangerous contested zones, establishing camp in a protected valley that offered natural concealment. As they prepared simple meals from field rations, Naruto removed the adamant orb from its container, studying its crystalline structure in the firelight. "It feels alive somehow," he observed, watching how the orb responded to his proximity. With subtle shifts in internal light patterns. Not conscious like the library's guardian, but responsive. The orbs contain aspects of both Arceus and Kaguya's awareness, Tsukihime explained, Santa. Our filled eyes perceiving nuances others couldn't. Not their full consciousness but specialized fragments dedicated to guiding convergent development. I've been meaning to ask, Rei interjected, scientific curiosity overcoming professional restraint, how does it feel? The convergence process, I mean. From a phenomenological perspective, Naruto considered the question thoughtfully, appreciating her interest in subjective experience alongside objective measurements. Like, remembering something I never actually forgot. The knowledge feels simultaneously new and ancient, not information I am learning but understanding I'm recovering. Genetic memory externalized through dimensional resonance, Rei theorized, adjusting her glasses with characteristic enthusiasm. Your cellular structure. Contains encoded information that requires specific activation conditions to become consciously accessible. It's more than just information, Naruto clarified, struggling to articulate the experience. It's perspective, ways of perceiving reality that weren't previously available to me. Dimensions beyond standard spatial awareness, time as malleable medium rather than linear progression, energy. Why as conscious principle rather than impersonal force? Is your sense of self remaining stable through these perceptual shifts? Mitsuko asked, the question carrying practical concern beneath professional inquiry. Yes, Naruto answered with confidence. That's what's different about this convergence according to the library records. Previous vessels lost themselves in expanded awareness, became the power rather than wielding it. My identity remains my anchor point regardless of how perception expands. Because your identity was never defined by limitation but by connection, Tsukihime observed quietly. You don't need fixed boundaries to know who you are. The insight resonated deeply, capturing essential truth about his developmental path. From isolated child to respected shinobi, Naruto had defined himself through relationships rather than individual capabilities, a foundation that now provided crucial stability during cosmic transformation. As night deepened around their camp, conversation gradually quieted into contemplative silence. Each team member processed the extraordinary experiences of recent days according to their unique perspectives, Rei through scientific framework, Mitsuko through diplomatic implications, Tsukihime through historical context, Naruto through direct integration with developing abilities. Taking first watch, Naruto positioned himself on an elevated outcropping with clear views across the surrounding landscape. The adamant orb remained within arm's reach, its subtle resonance providing continuous stabilization for his dimensional perception. Through enhanced senses, he observed not just the physical environment but layered realities beyond conventional awareness, energy currents flowing through seemingly solid matter, temporal echoes of past events lingering in significant locations, subtle dimensional boundaries separating adjacent possibilities. Movement nearby alerted him to Tsukihime's approach, her unique energy signature immediately recognizable through both conventional and enhanced perception. "Trouble sleeping?" he asked as she settled beside him on the rocky outcropping. "Processing," she corrected gently. "The library contained historical records my clan believed lost centuries ago. Information that changes our understanding of the convergence prophecies. Good changes or concerning ones?" "Both," she admitted, star-filled eyes reflecting the night sky above. "The records suggest convergence was always meant to establish new balance rather than restore old patterns. Not returning to how things were before separation, but creating something that never previously existed. That's a lot of responsibility," Naruto acknowledged, feeling the weight of cosmic implications. "Yes," Tsukihime agreed simply. "But the records also indicated convergence would manifest in someone capable of carrying that responsibility, someone whose essential nature aligned with the intended outcome." "And you think that's me?" Doubt colored his question despite growing confidence in his developing abilities. Tsukihime turned toward him fully, star-filled eyes meeting his transformed gaze with unusual intensity. "I know it is, not because of prophecy or bloodlines or cosmic calculation. Because I've watched how you approach power, as responsibility rather than entitlement, as connection rather than dominance." The sincerity in her assessment penetrated layers of uncertainty that lingered despite recent progress. Not empty reassurance but genuine recognition of qualities Naruto himself sometimes failed to see knowledge in his focus on immediate challenges. "Thank you," he said simply, words inadequate for the affirmation her perspective provided. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel overhead while the adamant orb pulsed with subtle light between them, physical manifestation of balanced power now beginning to find its proper place in the cosmic order. Dawn brought renewed RPOSE as they completed the final leg of their journey back to Konoha. The political timeline Tsunade faced created urgency that guided their path through increasingly familiar territory. By mid-afternoon, they approached the hidden passage Tsukihime had originally used to lead them from the village, a route that would allow discreet return without official notice. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.